Welcome to the 444th episode of the Random Podcast from Heck. My name is Tony, and this is the podcast about random things in the world of entertainment, which includes movies, TV shows, and comic books. Big shout out to Andrew Loken. He is a big supporter of the show. You can be a supporter by going to patreon.com/gmanfromheck. Any amount you can commit to will be awesome. If you commit at the Rick Jones tier or higher, you get access to the secret podcast from Heck, which is an additional 20-ish minutes, or to 20 to 30, 30-ish minutes of podcast entertainment every single week. I'm doing a lot of classic silver-aged, weird, wacky DC comics, because I've been doing a bunch of Marvel, recently. So just figured we'll do some DC. And just the weird Superman or Batman or Jimmy Olsen, Lois Lane comics are just, I love the weird, goofy covers and trying to figure out how do they explain when someone dies or turns into a baby or whatever. And I also do Off My Mind episodes, so I did like the Back to the Future one many times recently. But if you can't commit to a monthly commitment, you can also help out by going to coffee.com/gmanfromheck. And you can buy me a virtual cup of coffee or 3. That's ko-fi.com/gmanfromheck. You can also, if you just want to, instead of doing like a coffee, you can go to the patreon.com/gmanfromheck, and you can buy like some of the Off My Mind episodes for the same price as a coffee, a virtual coffee. All right, what is going on this week? The movie feature is The Bride! Exclamation point, which I got to figure out if I can put that in the actual title of the episode, because I know sometimes that messes things up, but that's what it's called. So Maggie Gyllenhaal directed. Jesse Buckley, Christian Bale, Peter Skarsgård, Annette Bening, Jake Gyllenhaal, Penelope Cruz, but so many people in this movie. So you can find out how that went, or what I thought about that. As far as TV shows, so we got Monarch, Legacy of Monsthers. So I think I'm like a week behind. So you can hear about the first episode of the second season. Got some King Kong appearances going on here. We also have the penultimate episode of Hijack, the Idris Elba show. And then we have Wonder Man. And Decision Time, at least for this week, we're not going to do 56 days. So that probably means maybe we're not going to do it anymore. There's one small part, annoying part, that's like all the episodes are out, and now, we're like, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and 3.5 weeks, and I'm only, would have been on, was the episode, what did I do last time? I've only done 2 episodes. I don't know, I know it did well on Prime, it was like the #1 movie in whatever, or #1 series. But I don't know if that's something that you listeners want to hear. And I did get a little bit of feedback from some listeners. I totally appreciate that. And, one's like, maybe, just, and I appreciate the suggestions. I'm totally open. I want your feedback. I want to know what you want out of the show. But someone's like, maybe just stick to the genre shows. And 56 days, has nothing to do with anything that we know of. The only reason I wanted to watch it is because Dove Cameron, and the only reason I know Dove Cameron is because she was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And, I mentioned my daughter knows her from that Disney show that she was on, and I'm curious with the story. There's lots of twists and everything. I just don't think, maybe it's just time, I don't know if we need that. This podcast doesn't need to be so long every single week, I'm assuming, because you have so much to listen to and do and everything. So I think this is the end of 56 days or whatever. But I do want to finish watching it, so I hope I will still find time to watch it, even though it's not going to be a podcast focused. Yeah, so that's what's going to happen in this week. And we got some comics and news. As far as the news, I debated where I want to talk about this. I want to get this out at the beginning of the episode so it doesn't get like buried, and I want to make sure people hear this. I debated about talking about this during the comic section because we do the news first and then the comics. But then I was like, do I talk about it after the comics or before the comics? So we're just going to start off with the news. What I want to talk about is Black Mirror comics. So there are some comics based on Black Mirror episodes. So it's like by Twisted Comics. And there is currently already the USS Callister that is available. You can order that. So I've read this, and there's a paperback version, there's an ebook version. What I'm curious about is, so this is Twisted Comics is an English comic company, right? And these prices are in sterling silver, pounds, whatever. But basically, there's a new Kickstarter coming out this week. So this is why I'm talking about this now. And I don't have all the information because the Kickstarter's not live yet, but I got some preview stuff, from the publisher. Okay, so with Black Mirror USS Callister, this is out or whatever, but okay, so step inside the official Black Mirror graphic novels, brought to you by the aptly twisted indie publisher Twisted Comics, and discover humanity's worst traits, greatest innovations, and more waiting within these mind-bending tales. Adapting the work of one of the most groundbreaking television shows of the 21st century, Charlie Brooker and Annabelle Jones' flagship series will take flight in this first episode to graphic novel adaptation, USS Callister, in the trusted hands of acclaimed writer Neil Gibson and artist Silvano Beltramo, and all new series covers from Butcher Billy. But then it says, no, we are not sending this book out until we fulfill a Kickstarter. Expect your copy to arrive in January. Yes, this is all out. And it's, how many pages is this? This is, it's like over 100 pages. So it's like the complete thing. And, okay, so being totally honest with this, as I always do this, what I dig about this, it's really surprising. When I first heard about this, before this book came out, I'm like, one, I think it's brilliant. I love Black Mirror. I love that series. I love the episodes. Can never get enough because it seems like we just get a small handful of episodes, and then we have to wait and wait and wait until more episodes come out. And obviously, brilliant choice to do USS Callister. If you're going to adapt episodes, do that first, because that's the one that seems like everyone's really gung-ho. It has a lot of mainstream appeal, but then a part of me I'm feeling is like, well, are they just going to adapt the episodes? Okay, and you can expand on some things. You can maybe do things a little differently that wouldn't really, I don't know, not that it wouldn't work in an episode, but you can kind of, sky's the limit type of thing. You don't have to worry about budget so much or special effects and stuff like that. And as comic fans, it's great to see the comic for this. See it in comic form. The other thing I enjoyed about this, I'm sure it's a matter of rights, licensing, whatever. But what I find kind of neat is that the characters in the comic don't necessarily look like characters in the episode, and it's I'm like I said, I'm sure that it's just a matter of trying to, because I don't know. It's like, do you have to get like permission? How is it decided? How much do you have to pay someone to say, hey, we want to do this comic? Can we have our artists try to draw you? Like Kristen Miliotti's character. She was I would say, and I don't know if you say the main character, but she doesn't look anything like her. And I kind of can appreciate that, because while we've seen the adapted episodes, this should be also kind of considered a separate thing. And there's been so many times when I've read like adapted comics from adapted media, and no offense to the artist, any comic artist is going to be better than me. I cannot do anything sequential. I couldn't draw a whole scene or anything like that. So I'm not trying to belittle, begrudge anyone that. But a lot of times the artists take on live actors, it feels off. And it's almost more distracting when they're trying to make it look like the actor, trying to get the actual likeness, but it's not quite there. So I would much rather it be like totally different. Like, okay, let's redesign this character, based off of the script or whatever, and do that, rather than try to capture any traits from the actual episodes. I'm assuming that's what it is. That was my interpretation with USS Callister. I think it's kind of neat. And again, even though I've seen that episode at least a couple times, because we had the sequel as well and everything. So I really, really dig it. And what's surprising, what's my take on sci-fi comics? I'm not a big fan. While this isn't totally sci-fi, and by sci-fi, I should clarify that. I'm talking about space stuff. So usually the space comics, the coloring always throws me off. But there's like the scene when they go, this really sticks out. When Nanette Cole goes on the planet for the first time and everything like that. Just the colors and like the blue, her like blue suit and like the red and just like the sky. It really looked good. And normally there's something about this. I feel like space sci-fi comics are always just too bright, too colorful. But I really enjoyed this, so I like that. So the Kickstarter that is coming out is for San Junipero. So this is the other episode that I feel like this is like, I don't know, is this like the second? It seems like everyone like loves this episode. So this is the next one that we have. You see, so it says, who's saying this? Someone says, San Junipero is one of my all-time favorite episodes. What really struck me besides the atmosphere, the music, the romance was the structure. Reminded me of one of my favorite films, The Game by David. Actually, I don't know if I should be reading this yet. Because, no, this is live, yeah, because people can see this. I'm just reading off the Kickstarter website. So we're going to have San Junipero comic, and so on the Kickstarter page, you can see like some preview pages, and there will be rewards and stuff like that. So you should check that out. I'm sure, so depending on when you listen to this, because this is going to go live on Tuesday, March 10th. Okay, so this episode is going to go live a day or two, a couple days before that. I want to make sure if you are interested and you want to support this, you want to get a copy for yourself, go to Kickstarter. Like right now, I got a direct link to it from the publisher, but I'm sure if you search Black Mirror, San Junipero, Kickstarter, I'm sure, you'll be able to find that. Because like right now, as I record this, it's, you can see information on there. You can't do anything. You can't do it because it's not available. But it says notify me on launch. The comic, the page does exist, so you should be able to find it. It should be searchable. And looking at I got a sneak peek at this San Junipero, so like not complete pages. It's work in progress type of thing. But it's just like, again, it's cool, and I'm totally down for this. I feel like we should have Black Mirror comics. Now, again, where I'm being honest, the hesitant part is like, should they just, if hopefully we'll get more. Should they just adapt episodes? And I'm fine with that, because you could say, let's do an original Black Mirror inspired comic. That could be cool. But it also could be like, will it be like a true Black Mirror, energy vibe or something like that? So I'm curious. Like, hopefully this does well. People will support this and want to get it, because I want to know is like, okay, we got 2 great episodes adapted. It's like, what are they going to do next? What's on the list? And I'm sure they have it in mind. But I'm really curious to see, like, what one would you take on after San Junipero? So check those out. Go to Kickstarter, search Black Mirror. I'm sure if you just search Black Mirror, it'll pop up. So that, again, Tuesday, March 10th, you can back those up. And check that out. On Entertainment Fish, as I record this, my hopes that I will have a post up as well, and then I can have a link to the Kickstarter there. So hopefully I make that happen this weekend. And then as for the rest of the news, there was a Lanterns trailer. And so I admit that usually what happens is I go through these like energy fluctuations. It seems like, where I'm literally like falling asleep at times, and as I've mentioned, I think I mentioned it last week, there's times like while I'm recording and then as I was like watching, getting ready for this show, I was like getting a little tired. And so I watched the trailer, and obviously they're not going to show a whole lot. We don't really get a lot of Green Lantern-ness, but I'm sure it's going to be good. So so you can look at that. And I did see a report like, oh, we got 3 different Green Lantern rings. So I guess like Hal Jordan, John Stewart, and Guy Gardner, they all have different style rings. So I wonder if that's like a user choice, like if it were all energy construct or whatever, and I'm sure the ring has to adjust for the wearer's finger, or if they're an alien species, they may not have fingers or whatever. So I wonder if subconsciously you design your ring. I don't know. So we have that. Alien Earth. So Sydney Chandler, because Kyle Chandler's in Lanterns, so his daughter, Sydney Chandler, mentioned that production for Alien Earth Season 2 is going to start in May. But she also said, she hasn't seen any script or anything yet, so stuff's still being worked on. So, then how long is it going to take for the season? I mean, have to, keep our fingers crossed that it's going to be sooner, whatever. Ryan Gosling, speaking of Project Hail Mary, I haven't speaking of it. That's going to be out in 2 weeks. But he said that a lot of people were like, hey, why are you doing Star Wars? After all this time, he hasn't done any like the franchise. Hasn't done Star Wars, hasn't done Marvel or DC. He did do Blade Runner, but I guess he said that it was Sean Levy, the director, who convinced him that to do a Star Wars movie, and he was happy with the experience, it seems like. So I'm looking forward to that. Oh, I should mention Scream 7 that I liked last week, but apparently some people did not. It's the best opening in franchise. $97.2 million. It was way more than it projected. So for all the people protesting this movie, and again, you're entitled to your protest. You're right. But protesting this movie that has nothing, I don't know. It's just such a, I talked about last week, the whole politics aspect of it, but it was the best opening. So people trying to protest the movie, I don't know if that drove other people to go see it, or people just were in the mood to see it. I don't know. And I enjoyed it. A lot of people did not, or some people did not. I don't know. And I just think it's a silly slasher movie. The reveals are always silly, and I honestly do not remember what happened in 5 and 6. I can't even keep 5. Was it back in Woodsboro? Was it Woodsboro? Honestly, I don't even know the name of the town. And then 6 was 6 the New York one. And then why were they in New York? Who was in New York? So that was on the subway, right? Whatever. I like the movies, but I feel like some people just need to relax a little more. Just like enjoy the movie. You don't have to overanalyze it and whatever. So we have that. Speaking of relaxing a little, Terrence Howard, it came up. I don't know how it came up, but he was talking about his why he wasn't in Iron Man 2, and before it was all about the pay. I always thought he was like one of the first people hired, and he ended up having a higher salary than Robert Downey Jr. So then when it came time to the second one, they're like, well, we can't pay this guy the same amount because, there goes our budget and all this stuff like that. And, you can't say, hey, do this for less money. So they didn't, that's what I heard. But he was saying that that's not the reason why. He said that, I think this, I don't remember if this was before or after, but he said he was in a movie with Jodie Foster. And let's see, I guess he was, so he was recently nominated for an Oscar at some point. He asked Joel Silver, why he wasn't getting the same credit treatment that Jodie Foster was. So this is a quote from him. He said, Joe Silver came and had a conversation with me, and he's like, the reason your name isn't above the titles is because you're not the star of the thing. It's Jodie. And if you get nominated for an Oscar, it's going to be for supporting actor, not best actor. And then Howard's like, and I was like, thank you for telling me that. Now I understand. But you have to remember that I'm a man just like you. And if you ever talk to me that way again, I'm going to knock your teeth out of your mouth. And it's like, oh, way to go. That's so like unnecessary. That's ridiculous. It's like, oh, okay, you're so cool that you threaten someone because you don't like the fact that you don't have top billing. And the thing, when you look at the Iron Man movies, Terrence Howard was fine as War Machine, as Rhodey. And, when you watch it, you think, because I remember watching it, I was like, this guy's going to be War Machine. Interesting. Okay. And you look at what we've had since, I don't know. I don't know if he could pull it off. But, yeah, it was just, and then why are you talking about this now? It's like, it's so over, I guess he's still upset about it. But okay, yeah. So I'm gonna punch you in the teeth. He basically said it like it is. She was the star. He's not. Sorry. Talk to your agent if you don't like it. I don't know. Yeah. So we have that. What about Voltron? So Henry Cavill's Voltron, I think, is what people are saying. Because I look at it, I honestly don't know anyone else in the movie. Which doesn't mean anything. Maybe if I saw like headshots and I'd be, oh yeah, or if I actually look at credits, but I didn't. He's playing King. Was it King Alfor? I'm trying to think back, but it's looking like that movie is going to probably come out 2027. I was like, okay, that's good. There was a trailer for another teaser, whatever, Daredevil Born Again, and we see more. Matt Murdock and Jessica Jones. We see Bullseye and all this stuff. So I'm excited for that. There's a rumor. There's lots of like Spider-Man rumors and Doomsday rumors, and I'm getting to the point where it's like, okay, I don't want to know. One, I don't know if they're true, so it's like I don't think it's worth my time reading. But then two, it's like if they are true, it's like I don't want to be spoiled. And then three, so it's like, how are people where are you getting this information? I don't understand. But one of the things that I saw, which is kind of interesting, is they're saying, oh, it looks like the Fantastic Four might be expanding. And there's a rumor that Valeria is going to be part of the family. So they'll have Franklin and Valeria, which is interesting. If it's like, we're not even going to see this happen, because the whole thing with Valeria, the reason she's named Valeria after Dr. Doom's mother, is that her name? Is, there's complication with the pregnancy, and Dr. Doom was the one that made sure that there was a safe pregnancy or whatever like that, because, Reed couldn't do it, and that was like his one thing. So as part of his whatever one-up on Reed, he got to name the child or something like that, whatever. So we're going to just gloss over that. All of a sudden, here's a kid. I don't even know, but who knows if it's going to even happen, right? And then that's kind of it for the news. I didn't really see a whole lot. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I missed. But the last thing, kind of interesting, it's nothing major, but Stephen Yeun was talked about Thunderbolts, because, he was supposed to be Sentry. And then apparently scheduling conflicts, he couldn't do it. So he was asked, I think it was MovieWeb or something like that, asked, like, have you seen Thunderbolts? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I love, Jake Schreier, who played, he's like, he was great and everything like that. And they asked him, like, are you still interested in being in a Marvel movie? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I'm available. So basically he's like, who doesn't want the Marvel money? And there's some people who don't, apparently don't want the Marvel money, but he's just like, yeah, I'm still here. So that's good, because it seemed weird that he was in it, and then Robert Kirkman kind of like outed that he was going to be Sentry, which is not cool. And then all of a sudden, then he's like not going to be in the movie. So who knows? What I do know is that is the news for the week. There's plenty more podcasts to come. With comic books, there was Speed Racer #6. And so this is by David Pepos, and or was it Tina? I forget who did the art. Sorry. So issue 6, and I think I might have actually missed issue 5. I got to see if I know I have it, but I think I didn't read it. It might have been one of those weeks where I just got behind, because it looks like Pops is out of the hospital. He apparently still needs a heart transplant. So, that was the main thing. That's why Speed is like trying to, do the races, is to earn money to pay for a heart transplant, because they don't have medical insurance, and insurances or medical procedures are crazy expensive in the United States, which I'm assuming that's where they're at. What's cool about this episode is you see right away there's some guy working on an engine, and they mentioned the GRX engine. I was like, GRX engine? That's the fastest car on Earth. So that was from... It might be from, I don't even know why I'm saying this. I think it's like from episode 4 or 5. That's probably not. Actually, I'm going to look it up. I don't know if I'll be able to find this as I'm talking. But there is an early episode of Speed Racer, fastest car on Earth. I thought I could like type and talk at the same time. Episode. Let's see. So this was. Oh wait, the 20th episode? Fastest Car on Earth Part 1 is the 20th episode of Speed Racer. First aired in Japan on August 13, 1967. So again, before my time. I saw well after that on this ultra cool syndicated channel in Chicago suburbs. So the fastest car on Earth, if I remember correctly, because I know I've watched this episode many times, where it's just this state-of-the-art engine. And I think Pops was involved somehow, but it's just like it's super dangerous, and like the drivers can't really handle it. They just kind of like lose their mind or whatever. And then someone, I think I could be wrong. I think they ended up like, I don't know if Pops like buried the engine or something like that. They're like, it's too dangerous to use. Someone dug it up and they used it again, and then Speed's going up against it. So basically, here in the comic now is Pops was working with this other guy, and he's like, no, I can't do this anymore or whatever. The guy kept doing it, and he lost his job and his mind and whatever like that. So the guy's son he's determined. He's like, I'm going to destroy the racer family, which it's always ridiculous when people have these like revenge things. It's like they're so extreme. So then he like calls out like Speed. So Speed's, of course, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna race you. You call out my whole family and all this stuff. And so yeah, there's this new car and everything like that. And I won't go into. I don't want to reveal anything else, but I thought that was cool. So that was a Speed Racer. At Image, I didn't read anything at Image. Let's see. Okay. I meant to read Narco #1. So this is a comic by Doug Wagner. Daniel Hiller does the art. Dave Stewart does the colors. Ed Dukeshire does the letters. The Doug Wagner comics, they're always very weird and violent, and so I don't know anything what this comic is about, but because it's Doug Wagner and I've been intrigued with his last stuff, so I meant to read this. But I thought it's like, oh, there's nothing from Image this week, because I'm so far behind on Radiant Black. I fell behind on Sacrificers. Yeah, that's Image stuff. At Marvel, we had a few things. I didn't read everything at Marvel, so I'm still trying to figure things out here. We had X-Men #26. So this is Jed McKay and Netho Diaz. I can barely read that. This, I like this. It was pretty straightforward, and you can kind of see where things are going. There's some developments with what's Psylocke's boyfriend's name? Jim Crow? No, is that it? Whatever. There's something happens with him, so Psylocke has to deal with that. And then the sheriff in town, because they're up in Alaska, the X-Men here, something, she's like missing. So the X-Men, they're like, yeah, we're going to help her. Cyclops is like, we're going to do this. Some of the X-Men are like, why are we doing this? And stuff like that. So they get a location where she may be, or something like that. And of course, is this going to be a trap? So we'll see about that. And then something else happens in town, which I won't mention about that. And I'm sure things will be fine, but it's very drastic, and it's just like, oh man. So we'll see about that. There's Avengers 36. Not a lot happens here. We basically have Carol Danvers. She's the Avengers chairman. She's like, yeah, I'm stepping down. And everyone's like, okay. And because she's stepping down, that I don't know if everyone is on board with this, but it's like dissolving this roster of the Avengers. Everyone's like, it seems like they're busy. T'Challa is looking at Wakanda, like, I guess, reclaiming the throne, even though he's in space. I don't know. Everyone's busy, I guess. I don't know what Storm's doing, because I'm not reading her comic. I don't even know if her comic's still going. Yeah, so basically, they're going to have to get it. I guess they have to like nominate a new chairperson. And so, when she's talking to Tony Stark, they're like, the calls go out. So I guess everyone has to nominate who they think, and then whoever is declared the chairperson, then they have to come up with a roster. So it's like, okay, that's interesting. And I don't know if there's been any information, any hints, any previews about who will be on the next team. That's going to be interesting. So I'm curious, who's going to be on the next team? Who's going to lead it? Who else will be on it? Will it be cool characters that I like? And then the other thing is, like, who's going to be working on it? Is Jed MacKay, is this his last issue? There's someone else. I have no idea, which is like weird. I must not have seen any emails from Marvel, because I'm sure there's got to be some information out there. But it kind of makes sense, because I was thinking about this. I was like, wait, we're going to get a new team, and I'm wondering, is like, because we're doing 36 issues here, so it's like, is Jed MacKay going to continue, or is he going to like move on to something else? Does he want us to continue? Maybe he does. Maybe he's like, okay, I've told my stories, so now I'm going to do something else. But it makes sense that if they are going to get someone else, it wouldn't make sense for Jed MacKay to be like, okay, this is going to be the new Avengers leader, because it should be whoever's writing the next issue should do all that. And if it's Jed MacKay, great, he gets to do that. If it's someone else, then they get to do it. So we'll see about that. And there's also stuff with the Arthurian heroes, with the city for whatever, and then there's stuff with King, how he's incarcerated for trying to destroy everything. Yeah. There's X-Men Annual 2026 number 1. I actually did not read this. Ryan Stegman wrote it, Steve Skroce. I missed that somehow. Amazing Spider-Man number 23. This is doing that Spiral, Venom, Carnage, whatever storyline. And it's kind of interesting because Spider-Man is like doing some stuff, and then Venom's there, and he got a message from Eddie Brock, so he's assuming that this is Eddie, and he has no idea who Venom is. He doesn't know that it's Mary Jane, because Mary Jane, when she told him, she thought she told him, but she really told Ben Reilly, and he's like, you two deserve each other, and she's like, okay, you're a jerk. So yeah, we got some interesting things here. I really do not like Aunt May's boyfriend. He's very protective of her, and he's just like so incredibly rude. I guess I'm assuming, from their perspective, it seems like Peter's a major jerk and flake, but yeah. So that was, I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know how, because Carnage knows Peter's secret now, which sucks. I don't like that. I don't like when any villains know the hero's identity, but we'll have to see where that's going to go. There's Moonstar number 1. It's a miniseries, 5 issues. I'm curious about this. Moonstar was never like my favorite New Mutant, but I'm really intrigued with her. I feel like there's a lot to her. There's more to her than I would give her credit for. That I should give her more credit. So I'm really curious to see. And while I wasn't reading the Magic series, because I didn't like that first story arc or whatever, when I tried checking in like issue 6 or whatever, seeing Danielle there, and seeing how she's doing some Magic stuff too. Yeah, so I should try to check that out. Iceman Omega number 1. I didn't read this. I have no idea what the point of this, like what the storyline is going to be here. I'm assuming this is a miniseries. It doesn't say that. But the Iceman, I haven't really been enjoying him so much. Yeah, it's just weird. And I hate to say it, but since we had the revelation, it feels like he's a different character. It feels like he's been written differently. Well, he is. Flat out, he is being written differently. I don't have a problem with that, but I don't know. It just feels like it's like his priorities it's like shifted. I mean, there was one time where he's just looking like he's checking out all the guys or something like that, and it's like before, like when he was Iceman, it's not like he'd be checking out all the girls because he was in denial all this time. So it's just I don't know, but I'm curious. Like what solo Iceman story are we going to get here? We had Wolverine 17. I just don't have any interest in Wolverine comics. I don't know. They're so hard to read. Star Wars Shadow of Maul. I started reading this because this is like a prelude to the Darth Maul show that's starting up soon. I don't remember when. And we got this other dude looking into some things, and I couldn't finish it just because of time. It's like, okay, I need to start recording. I'm trying to read it. It's like last minute, and it wasn't fully holding my attention. So I hopefully will force myself to go back and read it because I do want to know. I mean, if it's going to tie into the show in any way, I'm curious. We had Nova Centurion number 5. I did not read this because I know I didn't read issue 4 yet, so I need to get caught up on that. And then I didn't read Daredevil Punisher. I don't remember what issue this is. Just because of time, I do want to read that. And then I did not read All New Gwenpool, Ghost Spider, because I didn't read the last issue. Yeah, so it's very, very lame on my part. At DC, there wasn't a whole lot of DC. So there's Absolute Superman, which I'm not reading that, issue 17. I'd like to think someday, I don't know. Batman number 7, oh my God. This is like the best Batman comic out there right now. I mean, I think I can say that. In my opinion, this is the best Batman comic. I'm enjoying this so much. Matt Fraction's writing and Jorge Jimenez's art. I mean, his art is just so, and the colors. I don't know who's doing the colors. I don't have the issue here, but it's so good, and the writing is just while there's not a whole lot of like action or anything in this comic. There's more conversations. I mean, you can see on the cover who's there, or if you're not sure who's on the cover, I don't want to say it, but I'm just so interested in this. I just love Matt Fraction's writing, and I'm so excited to keep reading this. I mean, anytime this comic comes out, it's like I'm like I can't wait. The thing is, there was something happened on the last page, and I'll just say Batman is like, huh? And I'm like, why Batman? Why are you so surprised by that? And I think, we'll see. DC KO number 5. I don't even know. I got nothing to say about this. I don't know. I literally have nothing to say. Okay, so this is the final issue. Whoever the survivor is against Darkseid. Who could possibly win? And it's just, what does this mean? And the fact that like so many people died, and there is going to be like a big sacrifice here. What does that mean? How long is that going to? I just don't even know. So it's just I know people enjoyed this. People have been enjoying it. And again, I say this all the time. That makes me happy. I want people to enjoy comics. I want them to be excited and have fun reading them. That's what they're for. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, I'm just not enjoying everything as much as other people. That is totally fine. And if I'm pointing out, or when I critique something like this, I'm kind of joking around. I'm trying to make it light. In no way am I trying to say, okay, you love this series. I'm not trying to say you're wrong or anything like that. And I don't mean to belittle something that you find exciting or fun or whatever. It's just, for me, it doesn't work. And that's why I'm always hesitant to mention stuff that I'm not going to lie about it, and I'm not going to say it was great if I don't think so. I am here to be completely 100% genuine. I am never going to blow smoke up anywhere on you, because that's weird. But I'm going to tell it like it is. And I'm assuming that you appreciate that and you understand that not everything is for everyone. So stuff that I love, I love the Speed Racer comic. Some people probably have no interest in the Speed Racer comic because they never watched it, don't care about it. So we'll have to see what this means. What does it mean for Lex Luthor? What does it mean for Superman? What does it mean for Superman Prime? Who's going to stick around? And yeah, so I don't know. There was some stuff with like Barry Allen at the end, and I'm not sure what that means. But then we have the Flash. No, Absolute Flash. Okay, I'm not reading that. And I am curious about Absolute Flash. We're at issue 12. I don't ever hear, I don't see anyone talking about it because I don't frequent, comic message boards all that often. But I am curious about this, and someday I'd like to go back and get caught up with this. But now we're at issue 12, so I got a lot of reading to do. JSA number 17, also by Jeff Lemire, that came out. We had Batgirl 17. I started reading this because I saw someone say, like, oh, Batgirl has new powers or something like that. So I started reading it, and there's something going on with her blood, and I don't know if it's like a blood curse or something. So yeah, that's not really sure what's happening there. But then after a while, I was like, again, because of time, it was right before the podcast, I was just like, yeah, it's not holding my interest. But that was it. That's it. So there's like, Nice House by the Sea. What's this? Batman, Green Arrow, The Question, Arcadia, Poison Ivy 42. That is it. So that is comic books for the week. Okay, Wonder Man, Season 1, Episode 6, Callback. I'm going to tell you right now, there was a moment in this episode, I'm watching it, and I totally I lost it. I was just like, oh! I literally, I paused it with one hand quick to my mouth with the neck, and I just sat there. And it was like late, so like everyone else's house is like sleeping, and this reminded me, it was similar to the season 1 finale of Severance, when I was just like, oh, there's this part. I was in complete shock. I could not believe. I was like, oh my God. And then as I'm sitting there, I'm like staring at the screen. I started off for a second. I paused it again, and I'm like, and then I was like, wait, okay, let's get to it. I was just like, there's no way this changes everything. How can you? Yeah, okay. So it starts off. There's a little camera recording, like a little video recorder, and like he tells a casting director, it's like you can't really see anything. It's like kind of out of focus. He tells a casting director that he's usually better dressed. Casting director is like, oh no, it sets the mood, and they're like, you're at the bar, the music's pumping, you feel the beat. Now you want a shot. So you approach the bartender, you make eye contact, and then the camera focuses, and we see it's actually like this was a flashback. It's a younger version of Trevor, because, has dark hair, long hair, full beard, and everything like that. And he's like, make mine Maberlab. And he's like, oh, and he stomps his foot. He's like, I'm sorry, and kind of laughs. He gives his cheek a light slap. And so he's like, make mine a Jägermeister. And then he apologizes, says, he's not his best, but he's the casting director is like, no, that was great. And then Trevor's like, I could really use the gig, mate. And they're like, really? He's like, yeah, I'm pretty desperate, to be honest. He sighs. He's like, can we try another one? And the guy's like, yeah. Actually, that wasn't the real audition. He's like, oh, I see. It's like, you're making something a little more adult, are you? And they're like, no, it's not like that. So he's like, gives him some new lines. And Trevor kind of looks at it. He's like, no, you don't have to memorize. He's like, I just want to get a sense of your tone. And he's like, tone? Oh. He's like, you've got it. So he sighs, and like his normal voice, he's like, some people call me a terrorist. And the guy's like, try to sound scary. So he like thinks for a moment, and he kind of whispers a line, some people call me a terrorist. Casting director's like, good. He's like, try it with these. He hands him big sunglasses. And in a lower octave, he's like, some people call me a terrorist. And thus, the Mandarin is born. So that was a flashback today. Cut to Trevor driving. Simon suddenly like wakes up. He's in a passenger seat. He says he fell asleep because he's exhausted. And Trevor's like, well, I'm sure the adrenaline will kick in. And he's like, I hope so. He's like, I've had plenty of all-nighters. Like, trust me, the second wind will come. You just have to open your sails to it. And Simon's like, whatever that means. And he looks at his phone. He's looking at the lines. He's like, which one of these do you think sounds better? It's like, we only get one shot at this, Barnaby. It's not the time for games and riddles. Or then he changes the inflections where it's not the time for games and riddle. It's like very, very like tiny, subtle like difference. Trevor's like, well, they both feel a bit, and he's like, terrible. He's like, no, I was going to say a bit forced. It's like, they feel a bit forced. And Simon like slouches a bit in his seat, at the words. He's almost like a little kid, kind of like pouting or whatever. He's like, hey, he's like, Von Kovac doesn't know that we're coming together, right? He doesn't even know that we're friends. We could plan something and make it seem spontaneous. Like you can cut me off halfway. And he's like, Simon, listen to yourself. And he's like, no. He's like, if we plan something, it won't be spontaneous. It will just feel inauthentic. So then Simon's just kind of like silent for a while. He's like, I can't believe this poop. And Trevor's like, steady on. He's like, no, I said it last night. I'm supposed to be rested. I should have went home or to the gym. It's like, I'm supposed to be on my game. And Trevor's like, you're going to be great. He's like, yeah, or I'm going to blow the biggest opportunity of my life because I got caught up all in your BS last night. And Trevor's like, well, you got one hell of a story out of it. And Simon's like, and what about Jaden? Because he almost got shot. And Trevor's like, no, I had a feeling it would all sort itself out. He's like, you say that about a lot of stuff, don't you? He's like, well, look at me. I mean, here I am on my way to meet Von Kovac for the role of a lifetime. And then title card, Wonder Man. And I don't know if I really mentioned it, but when they do these title cards, it's just like, the next scene. But it almost has like a kind of like a 70s feel to it. It's just a shot of like the back of the cars are driving down the road, yellow letters, big yellow letters of Wonder Man, and it's just little tiny stuff. So I don't know, I just kind of dig the style of that. So they arrive to the gate at this place. They like waves, or Trevor like mentions their names or whatever. They get let in. Then they're like standing outside the mansion, and Simon's like, "This is intense." They walk up to the door, and Simon freezes because there's like one pair of shoes outside. He's like, "Look at that." He's like, "That's weird, isn't it?" And Trevor's like, "How so?" He's like, "If it's a shoes off house, there'd be a whole line of shoes. If it's a shoes on house, there'd be none. But one pair of shoes? What does that mean?" And Trevor's like, "Someone forgot their shoes?" He's like, "What? No, Trevor, this is a test. Von Kovac is judging us based on every little thing we do or say." And Trevor's like, "So let's not give him any strange energy to pick up on. We both have a lot riding into Simon." And he's like, "Why would you say that?" He's like, "Take it easy." He's like, "Come on, try your box breathing." So he lets out a big breath because, he knows that if Simon gets worked up, he's going to lose control of his powers. So he's like, "Come on, let's both stay loose and relaxed." He's like, "What? No, I can't do either one of those things." The door opens, there's a woman standing there. "Come in, Mr. Kovac will meet you in the living room." And then, with a big smile, Simon's like, "Amazing." As they follow, Simon bends forward and quietly, he's like, "Is she wearing shoes?" Because she has these really, really big like dress pants, like fancy pants, but the bottom they're like straight down, like I don't know if you call them boot. They're not even boot cut. They cover her entire feet. You can't see her feet. And then the next scene, I'm like, wait, do they show her feet? And there she's like walking. You don't see her feet. You can't tell what she's wearing. So they reach a room, and there's like 4 other dudes in there. And Simon quickly says like, "Oh poop!" It's like he's seeing us all at the same time. And Trevor's like, "That's a bit offside." Simon looks at, everybody's wearing shoes. They probably slept last night. This guy comes up to them and introduces himself. Manuel Maria Jose de los Remedios. So Simon introduced Simon Williams. Trev says, he's like, oh, you must be a fellow Barnaby, eh? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, Trevor Slattery. He's like, shall we fight it to the death? And then the other guy's like, bang, bang. So Simon's like, so you all here for the callback? And then this one guy's like, mm-hmm. And Manuel's like, claro. Another guy says that, he's like, I studied at Juilliard, mostly done theater, but I just wrapped up a Chris Nolan project. Another guy's like, I have no formal training for me. He's like, I'm a student of life. I'm also Paul Thomas Anderson's surfing instructor. One day he was like, you should be in my movie. Turns out I'm a natural. The phone hasn't stopped ringing. Simon looks and he's like, sounds like a pretty tough journey. He's like, nah, it wasn't. And Simon's like, nah, I was being sarcastic. He's like, oh, cool. Not really into comedy. And he like chuckles. And then, hello, everybody. Ron Kovac enters the room. Thank you so much for coming to my little retreat. I call it my prison of opulence. And I'm going to do the horrible accent. I'm trying to make it sound different. I'm not going to do it right. So you know that. He's like, I wanted a home that represents everything I both love and detest about Hollywood all at once. And he's like, follow me. So Simon, he has to like go and like grab some, the sheets with the lines on the table after everyone walks out. They're like walking like single file, and he's like reading to himself. He's like, we only get one shot at this, Barnaby, and it's not the time for games and riddles. And he keeps like reading, because knowing Simon, he has amazing, he can read the lines and memorize them, because that's what he did on the other audition. So he's reading it as they're walking across the house. And then in another room, there's like a bunch of like pictures like taped to the wall. It looks like, and there's like different, looks like, is that Sam Wilson, Captain America? Is there a Black Panther? Is there a destroyer from like, Thor, the Asgardian destroyer thing? It's like, is that Vision? And there's like some space stuff. It looks like, like drawings of like planets or whatever, planet scenes for the movie maybe. He's like, this is where I've been living with the project. It's been taking shape in my head. I wanted to bring you all inside my brain so we can explore it together. One guy notes, he's like, oh, there's a couple pictures of me. And next we'll see there's like a comic accurate picture of Wonder Man, with like the kind of navy blue, black top and the red W and like the sunglasses. So the guys, there's some pictures of him. And Von Kovac's like, oh, you seem to have snuck into my subconscious, eh? And the guy like chuckles. And he's like, Trevor's like, so the Spaniard pulls ahead. And he kind of like scoffs and grumbles. This is a song for the start of the picture. So then he's on his phone, he's playing the Midnight Special. The song by Creedence Clearwater Revival. He's playing it. He's like, can you see it? We're in space, all alone. It's cold. What is this strange, haunting song? We're getting closer to an alien planet. Closer, closer, closer. Wait, this is no alien planet. It's Earth. We are flying alongside Wonder Man as he returns home. The chorus kicks in. The dudes are kind of moving a bit to the beat. Simon's just like standing. Trevor, he starts imitating like a trombone. And as he does that, Simon's like looking at him. He looks a little concerned. He's like kind of like, what the heck are you doing? Just trombone? Whatever. And Von Kovac, he's like, oh, interesting. And then Trevor stops imitating. Von Kovac stops the music. Okay, why don't we get started? Let's split you up in pairs. Trevor and Ali. And Simon's like, actually, Trevor and I were kind of, and Trevor's like, no, it's okay, Simon. Let's just roll with it. And then Von Kovac's like, Simon and Manuel and Jake and Richard, okay? Then they go into this other room. Richard and Jake are reading the lines. Simon covers his face quite. He's like, damn it. He's like, he's a natural. And Von Kovac's like, no, this isn't working. It's not you. It's the words. They're getting in the way. It's like, let's throw away the scene. And Simon's like, what? Because, he probably is just like, memorize the lines, whatever. It's like, throw it away. We don't need it. Manuel like pulls a rolled up copy out of Simon's hands. He's like, I don't care what you think about this character or whatever choices you have made about the script. Our ideas about heroes and gods, they only get in the way.
It's too difficult to comprehend them. So let's get past them. Let's find a human underneath. I want you to see who you really are. I want us to explore the place between fiction and nonfiction. And Jake, he's like, oh, that's tight. He's like, yes, Jake, it is tight. Let's try something. Melanie, make sure you film this. Let's see where it goes. Let's not limit ourselves to this room. I want you to think of the whole house as yours. Why don't we start with Trevor and Ali? Ali, Trevor is your wife. And Trevor's like, okay. Like right away, he's like, you hate her, but she is also the reason you want to live. And he's like, He's like, and you have an old hunting injury here. He hits him like in the arm or the shoulder like that. So he like kind of slouches to the side. So then he's like, you disgust me. Get out of my sight. And he's like, you don't mean that. You're just mad about what my sister said. It's like, and then Ali, I think it's Ali, he's like, she has nothing to do with this, and you know that. If you won't leave, I'll leave. So Trevor like stands his ground. So Ali's like, you disgust me. Get out of my sight. And Trevor's like, you don't mean that. You're just mad about what my sister said. Ali's like, she has nothing to do with this, and you know that. If you won't leave, I'll leave. But Trevor like, stands his ground, and Ali like huffs and walks off. And Trevor and the others follow. It's like, no. And he's like, this won't work. You're not listening. Listen to me. We're broken. He sniffles. He's like, beyond repair. And Trevor's like, no. And then Trevor moves closer. He's like, no. And he like sniffles, like, no. Trevor puts like Ollie's hand on his heart, and Ollie's like, no. And Trevor's like, no. And then Ollie like breathes shakily, puts his head on Trevor's shoulder. He's like, maybe. And Manuel's like, wow, they're so present. And then Von Kovac's like, wonderful. He's like, Simon and Manuel, you are having an affair. Manuel, you are worried you are losing Simon. Simon, you are worried you are losing yourself. And you squint a lot. You have no eyelashes. The light is always in your eyes. So they moved into the dining room from the other scene. As Manuel like sniffles. He's like, baby, my baby. Simon like sighs. He's like, what happened to us? I mean, we are losing our magic. Don't you feel it? Don't you see it slipping through your beautiful little fingers? So Simon nods. Manuel sighs. Simon sighs. And Manuel like waits for Simon to say something. And he's like, you know what? He's like, He's like, just tell me one thing. Why'd you make me get all dressed up? And Manuel's like, well, I thought you liked being dolled up, baby. And Simon's like, no. What I mean is, he gets up, if you're going to tell everybody I'm a hooker, why don't you just let me wear my own clothes? And Trevor's like kind of confused, like where Simon is going, is where he's taking this. He's like, in my own clothes. When someone like that guy, Stucky, comes up to me, I can handle it. I'm prepared. And then he's like, okay, sorry, but you're a little sensitive, okay? And Simon's like, you think you can just pass me around to all your friends? I'm not some little toy. He's like, no, I bought you toys, but I never used you as a toy. And Simon's like, look, you don't own me, okay? He's like, okay. Simon's like, I decide. I say who. Smashes a glass. And Trevor and Ollie are surprised. Simon's like, I say when. I say who. Smashes another glass. I say when. He already said that. He's like, I say who. He smashes a bowl. He's like, I'm sorry I ever met you. I'm sorry I ever got inside your stupid car. I've never had anyone make me feel as cheap as you did today. Sighs. And then Vankova's like, okay, you did a scene from Pretty Woman. Not what I was looking for. Let's regroup in the living room. And Simon's like crouched on the floor, like, because, with the bread broken, like dishes and stuff, whatever. He's like, Simon, I'm disappointed. So Trevor comes, like, help pick up, like, broken pieces. He's like, you're blowing this. And Simon's like, I know. Trevor's like, if you don't turn things around soon, the game's up. He's like, I know. It's all your fault. And Trevor's like, oh, you got to get over last night. It's just getting in your way. And Simon's like, look, you can save your words of wisdom for your little scene partner. And then upset, Trevor just gets up and walks out. Then in the living room, Trevor's like, he's talking to the others. He's like, 1986. He's like, I'm in New York and in an off-Broadway production of The Skin of Our Teeth. So Simon asks, he's like, where's Von Kovac? And he's like, we're on a break. So Trevor continues his story. He talks about how people were excited to see Robert Palmer. He's like addicted to love was top of the chart. He's like, no thanks. He's like, by luck, the opening act was Chaka Khan, eh? He's like, now, I've got to tell you, lads, there's a performer, magnificent. I'm so sorry. No one in this room can hold a candle to her. She closed with, I'm every woman. Left it all on stage. Robert Palmer might as well have gone home. And they like all laugh. And Richard says, he's like, I got to ask. He's like, a role like the Mandarin? How do you shake something like that after living inside it? He's like, well, to be honest, I can hardly remember. I was so blitzed out of my skull. And Richard's like, I can't imagine what you're carrying around. I still have nightmares from playing Padrick and the Lieutenant of Inishmore. And he like scoffs. He's like, I'm sorry, Richard. I didn't realize you were such a fragile thing. They all laugh. Then Von Kovac returns. Pardon the phone call. How's everyone feeling? Everyone okay? Let's try a new exercise. And Simon stands tall. I would love another shot. He's like, okay, if you think you can bring a little more of yourself into this, Richard, let's have you up here. Pretend to be someone from Simon's past. You're going to call him on the phone. Feel free to choose whoever you like. He's like, a classmate? Yeah, that will work. And Simon, now really try to go back there. Remember what it was like in grade school. This is the part that is coming up. Richard's like, he holds his hand up, ring, ring. Simon's like, hello? And he's like, hey, freak. And Simon's like, oh, it's you. You're damn right, it's me. You think you can hide from me, you little poop? And then Simon's like, all right, that's enough. And he like laughs. He's like, is it, you weirdo? And then he like looks him in the face now. Everyone knows your secret. You're not fooling anyone. And Simon's like, that's not true. He's like, we know. And he puts his hand down. He's not doing the phone anymore. He's like, we've all been talking about it behind your back. And Trevor cuts in. He's like, hey, Richard. And he's like, your dumbass friend can't help you, Simon. No one can. And Simon's like, please. And Simon like grimaces and clutches fist. Stop. Because he's like, please stop. He's like, you're a freak and you always will be. And this is a part that caught me off guard where I had to like stop it and everything. So then Simon punches his fist right through Richard's head. Right through his face, and they all like scream. They all like jump back. Von Kovac is shocked. Trevor like puts both his hands over his head, and he's like, oh. And we get a shot, like a back shot of like Simon pulling his fist out, and we see the his face. We see Simon's face through the hole in Richard's head. But then I'm like, so I pause, and as I'm like, wait. I was like, okay, so Simon's got super strength, right? You know, he's smashed the island, like the marble, whatever island in his mom's kitchen. But, okay, so he's so strong, he can punch a hole. He can punch his fist right through someone's face. But then I'm thinking about that. It's like, okay, if you punch someone in the face so hard, you're not going to punch a hole. You can't punch a hole through someone's face. Because if you punch them, they're going to go flying back. And, maybe they'll go through the wall or be embedded in the wall. But the only way you could punch a hole through a face, through a head, is if their feet were firmly glued to the ground. Because there's nothing holding them. You push them, they're going to go flying back. And if you're hitting with that much force, I was like, wait. Okay, I get what they're showing, but I was like, but regardless, despite all that, it's like, holy crap. I was like, this is all over. Because even if Von Kovac's like, okay, you got strength, whatever, he just murdered someone. I'm just like, oh my God, what can we do? So, and then the body, it just like falls, like crumples, and they're all like exclaiming, and Simon's just standing there. And then Von Kovac's like, Simon, and Simon gasps. He friggin' fell asleep in the chair in the room. So that didn't happen. I was just like, oh my God. I was like, okay, you got me. I was like in shock. So he was just sitting there, and he's like breathing heavy. And Von Kovac's like, were you asleep? He's like, oh no. And he's like, I'm sorry. Yes. He's like, oh, have we been boring you? He's like, I think I need a minute. So Simon like walks out of the room, and then Richard's like, geez, didn't realize you're such a fragile thing, which is what happened in Simon's dream. So Von Kovac, he's like, he didn't like that remark. He's like, hey, and he like puts his hands out like, what are you doing? So Simon's standing like out in the balcony, like looking at the city. Trevor comes out. He's like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "No, Trevor, I'm not." And he's like, "It's not too late to turn this around." He's like, "Yes, it is." He's like, I can't take this anymore." He shrugs. He's like, "Too tired." And Von Kovac keeps pushing. He wants to see who we really are underneath. But I can't show my underneath. I can't share the real me. The real me would get kicked out of here. I'd never be able to act again. And Trevor's like, "That's not true." It's like, the real you isn't your condition. It's like the real you is it's the sum of everything you've experienced. The loss, the joy, sadness, heartbreak, losing someone you love so much, wanting something so badly you could burst, hurting someone you care about, being hurt by those you love. That's your life. That's who you are. Mirror up to nature. That's our job. When we share our pain, our grief, our joy, the audience less alone in theirs. We're all less alone. So Simon thinks about this and turns back to the city, kind of wipes his eyes, sniffles. He looks at Trevor and he's like, "We only get one shot at this, Barnaby. It's not the time for games and riddles." And Trevor's like, "I agree. It's too late already. That's what I've been trying to tell you." He's like, "I can't accept that. I can't give up on this planet, these people. What you can or can't accept no longer matters." And then you can tell the scene, they're still continuing the dialogue, but the scene changes because they're not out in the balcony anymore. You can see it's like a different background, so it must be inside. And Simon's like, "That's not true. If we work together," and Trevor's like, "We were never together." And Simon's like, "Come on, that's BS." And Trevor holds up his hand as a gun. And Simon's like, put the gun down. And Barnaby's like, "He found my price, Wonder Man. Everybody has one. I just pray you never have to learn yours." And Simon's like, "Okay, you're not thinking straight. He's gotten into your head. You're better than this, Barnaby." And Trevor's like, "Believe what you want to believe. General Brouillard has your coordinates. He's coming for you. You're not making it out of here alive." And Simon's like, "I'm not going to give up. I don't care about the cost." Trevor's like, "Then it's your funeral." Trevor walks off, and they're all watching, the assistant's filming. And then it cuts to, she's walking Simon and Trevor out, and Trevor, he looks upset, and Simon's like, "So, that's it? It's over?" And she just, turns, and she walks away. And, they're, standing at the door, and Trevor's like, "Wow." And Simon's like, "Okay." And then off to the side, to the office, "Hey, what are you two going?" And it's Von Kovac. And Trevor's like, and Simon's like, "Huh?" He's like, "Home? Why would you do that?" And Trevor's like, "Well, we weren't quite sure." And Simon's like, "What's happening?" And Von Kovac's like, "I didn't want to do this in front of the others, Simon. I was ready to dismiss you." And he's like, "Yes. But there is no denying you are Wonder Man." And that actually kind of warmed my heart, because I was like, Simon wants this so bad. And, you see, he's wanted to be an actor his whole life. And, all this time, and he hasn't given up. He's done little jobs, and, he keeps trying and trying. And, his mom supports him, but his brother gets on his case. So it's no one is there. And this is what he's, this is everything. And, he's just there's no way he could do it. So it's wait, is there some dust in the room? What's happening? How come I can't see? So then Simon's like, "Wait, really?" He's like, "I can't imagine anyone else in the role. And Trevor, you are my Barnaby." And Trevor's like, "It would be an honor." And he exhales. And Von Kovac puts his arm around Simon. "The world is going to fall in love with the two of you. We are going to make the last movie on Earth, because no one will have the balls to make another." And he laughs. He's like, "We will discuss more soon." And then there's some uplifting music. They drive in silence, and it's they're in shock. So then they reach Trevor's apartment building. Simon's like, "Hey," and he's like, "Yeah." Simon exhales. He's like, "Thanks, Trevor." And Trevor's like, "Well, I think we both earned some rest." He chuckles. And Simon's like, "Yeah, you're damn right." He sighs. And Trevor's like, "Congratulations, Simon. And Simon's like, congratulations, Trevor. So Trevor sighs. They shake hands. Trevor gets out. Simon pulls away. As soon as he pulls away, an SUV pulls up, like skids right behind. And Trevor like, ooh, he like turns around to enter the building, and the big dude's like comes out of the back. He's like, oh no, you don't. They grab him. So Cleary's in the passenger seat. So Trevor's in the back with like two big dudes. And Cleary's like, Trevor, you're ignoring my calls? He's like, oh yeah, well, I've been a bit busy. And Cleary's like, where's my recording? I'm afraid it broke. I'm really sorry about that. And Cleary's like, okay, right. You're going back to prison. He's like, no. It's like, you can't do that. And he's like, why not? But the whole thing is like, the whole like idea of blackmail is just like, so scummy. And he's like, why not? He's like, because you were right about Simon. And it's like, Trevor, what are you doing? He's like, he is an enhanced and incredibly dangerous. And Cleary's like, really? He's like, yeah. And he's like, and you're willing to testify that in court? And then Trevor's like, what good will that do you? The word of a convicted terrorist? And Cleary's just like silent. He's like, it's nothing. You know that. You need more evidence. And I know how to get it for you. But I need some time. I can't be pressured. That's all I ask. And then I Feel For You by Chaka Khan starts. Chaka Khan, Chaka Khan, Chaka Khan, Chaka Khan, Chaka Khan, let me rock you, Chaka Khan. And it cuts into the credits. I never thought I would be singing Chaka Khan on any podcast. And I never thought I would hear Chaka Khan in a Marvel movie. I want to rock you, Chaka Khan. Oh, that song when it came out. I'm sorry, I wasn't like the biggest Chaka Khan fan. I was like, what is this? But there you go. That might be my favorite episode. And again, nothing is really happening. This isn't like a Marvel superhero movie. It's just all about the story. And I didn't think, when I saw the preview, I'm like, what is this? I was like, this is Wonder Man. It's like, I don't care about this. Oh my gosh, I think I might kind of love Wonder Man. I mean, I really feel for his character, even though, he is so flawed. And he is a little selfish or whatever, but it's just, he dreams. I was like, oh my gosh. So that was episode 6. Oh, but the fist part, oh my goodness. Chaka Khan. Okay, Hijack, season 2, episode 7, Contact. So this is the penultimate episode. We have one more episode after this. What can possibly happen? Who's going to live? Who's going to die? It does seem like, I'll admit, so having watched this episode, obviously, it does seem like there's just quite a bit, and I'm still trying to understand the whole point of this. Like, all this is for John Bailey Brown, to get him out of police custody or whatever. And I don't understand why they need a train. So they're gonna they're gonna do the handover, get him on the train, but then it's like, where's the train gonna go after that? Is it gonna go like to the next stop and then they get out? Because then it's like, why not say, because I guess they need the train for the hostages. But it's like, why take a train? Why not take a bus? Why not, something a little more convenient? Because there's one thing that happens in this episode to the train that it's like, well, there's always this problem that they could. So hopefully I'll remember when we get to the point in the episode. So it starts off in the countryside. Marcia's in the woods. She's checking her phone for phone signals. She hears like a truck, and it's the lady and the dude with the rifle, shotgun, whatever it is. I don't know. I guess I don't know guns. I think it's a shot. It's a double barrel shotgun. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Or maybe it's a single, whatever. Who cares? She also has a couple dogs. And she's like, she won't get far out here. And dude's like, we should call Lang. I don't know who Lang is. But, she's not like into that. But then we see so I guess I don't know if I missed something, but Marcia must have hurt her leg because she's like hobbling away. It's like, am I totally forgetting something? It's totally possible. At the station, Wolf and his men walk back to the platform. Oh, so there was a shot at the end. And I don't know, it's so weird because last episode, they're closing in on the train. Sam and Jess, the lady, are out there.
because they know there's armed people there, Sam grabs Jess acting like she's a hostage, and he's like I'll kill her or whatever. And then I was like, wait, did something happen? So they actually shoot because they're like, they're like, take the shot or whatever. But last week when I watched it, it's like somehow I didn't hear like a shot. But then when they do the recap at the beginning, it's like, okay, that's definitely a shot. So Wolf and his men are walking back to the platform, and then they're like, he got away, but they made contact. And the guy's like, what do you mean made contact? Like, who'd you shoot? They're like, where's the train? And the bad detective, I don't even know what to call him now. I don't know what his name is, but he's there. Winter says that, they must have changed lanes, so much for your dead end. And officer dude, her worker, her guy who's just like, kill everyone, start shooting, whatever. He says that, Wolf had a clear shot and he took it. Winter's like, yeah, but we don't know who he hit. And the dude's like, well, either way, one hijacker down, one to go. So as soon as they find a train, they'll finish the job. And Winter, she's like, Clara? So on a train, we hear Clara's like, she's trying to call Otto. She's like, Otto, is everyone okay? Or, where are you? And Otto goes to answer, but Sam, he's there. He made it back. He's like, no. So it looks like he got like hit in the forearm, and Otto, he's like, let me help. He wants to stop the train, and Sam's like, no. And then we see Jess. She's like panicking, and she's like, why did they shoot me? Because she got like kind of hit in the shoulder or whatever. It looks like, it's not really super clear what it is. And Sam's like, they were aiming for me. They must have missed. And she's like, these people don't fudging miss. So she's like, okay, I'm supposed to be a hostage, and then they shoot me. That's that is a good point. And Otto says that it's like, we can't go on like this. And Sam's like, well, we have to. It's like, we're this close. If they could get everyone off this train, to give people, give these people what they want, and as long as if they got Marcia, that's what they got to do. Winter is asking, she's like, where are they? Then Mr. Deal, the manager dude, he says they must have changed tracks, so they're assuming that he's somewhere on the U6, and Winter's like, well, let's not assume anything, find him. And Clara starts like staring at the screen, and she says that if they locate the train, then they'll kill him. And Mr. Deal says, well, it's out of our hands. And Clara's like looking at a pause, the image from the video of just killing Freddy. So she's like, she knows Sam isn't the hijacker, and she knows that they're just going to kill him, and she doesn't want that. Jess asks, she's like, how do they know? They would never have shot me unless they thought I was a hostile. And she's like, tell me. She's like, come on, how do they know? And then Otto, he's finally like, yeah, we told him. And he's like, we did, okay? And then Sam's like, well, we had to. Like, what'd you expect? And she like curses. Winter talks to Faber on the phone, and he says that, she says that she's in a difficult situation, and it seems that he was right about Sam Nelson, and he's like, he didn't kill that passenger, and she's like, it appears that he has an accomplice, and then Faber's like, Sam's not the aggressor here, he's being coerced, and she's like, okay, and what intelligence do you have? He's like, we know he was lured here to Berlin. The whole thing is, it's a setup to frame him. And Winter's like, well, regardless, there's still hundreds of lives at stake. GSG-9 will be raiding that train at the next opportunity, and the principal target is Sam Nelson, which is stupid. It's like, she knows that he's being coerced, but she's still going to kill him. She's like, right now, I have no reason to call him off. And Faber's like, but if he's not in control, then how does killing him save lives? And she's like, if he's not in control, then who is? Get me the proof. The whole thing that's annoying about all this, obviously, now I'm trying to think back. It's got to be the case, unless I missed something, is they have no idea that the bombs are on a timer, that there's a code that you have to enter. And they have no idea that someone else has their finger on a trigger, that they can blow them up. And so here, at this point right here, they know that it's Sam and a woman. So are they kind of thinking that like, oh, these two are the ones involved? I guess, is there no reason to believe that someone else might be controlling them? I mean, that makes sense. But the fact that if they attack, they don't know, like, what's the results? So the other detective, Shady Detective, I guess we can call him that. He's real Slim Shady. Shady Detective, he's walking on a platform. John Bailey Brown is there, like, with a smile. He's like, is the handover happening or not? And Shady's like, well, you better hope it happens because, this is your ticket out. He's like, what? And he's like, this is all for you. So if you play along, you'll be a free man by the end of the day. And he walks off. And he walks by this other agent. He's like, I'm going to go get some air. He gets on his phone and he heads for street level. He calls a train. Jess hears a phone and she holds up to Sam. She's like, well, we're all dead now. And he's like, no. He's like, he needs me alive, okay? If he wanted to blow up the train, he would have done it ages ago. He's like, pick it up. Convince him that everything's okay. And she's just sitting there, phone's ringing. She's not doing anything. So he finally, like, grabs the phone from her. And he's like, stop fudging around. Pick it up. And then he puts it on speaker and holds it out to her. She doesn't say anything, and she has, like, tears in her eyes. So Sam's like, we avoided the ambush. And the Shady Detective's like, who was shot? He's like, we're fine. And the detective's like, are you sure about that? And Jess still won't talk. And he's like, look, if I don't hear her voice, I'm going to assume the mission is compromised, and I will end it. And he has, like, the detonator in his hand. And he's like, no evidence, no loose ends. He's like, and that includes Marcia. And then it's like, still, like, nothing. He's like, I'm waiting. And then it's like, wait a minute, did that dude on the platform, did he follow him? Because it almost looks like he's went up the stairs and he's, like, checking in on Shady Detective. But then Jess is like, we can still make the handover. We just need a new destination. Ideally somewhere where they can't put another fudging bullet in my shoulder. And he's like, get above ground. And she's like, we'll be sitting ducks. He's like, they won't attack you. She's like, if they've got an audience. And he's like, will they? And Sam's like, he's right. He's like, Otto, is there a way to bring the train to the surface? So he's like, thinks about it. He's like, there's a depot at like Brits Sud or something like that. He's like, it's a big train yard. And Sam's like, perfect. She's like, can you get us there? He's like, well, I can try. And the detective's like, tell the control center that that's where you're headed. And Sam's like, no. It's like, no more talking to them until we get somewhere where they can't screw us over again. And the Shady Detective's like, look, just get the train there and I'll take care of the rest. So I was like, how would he do that? It looks like at this point, it looks like you can tell that the guy that came up the stairs, I don't know if he heard actually any of the conversation, but he's up there and he sees the detective on the phone. So it's like, who's he talking to? Faber, Olivia, and the other dude they went to talk to, they have all of Sam's stuff, like his phone, his passport, briefcase that he left at the station. And Faber's like, yes, the bomb. And the dude, like, pauses because he was about to open the briefcase. But Faber's like, he kind of motions like, just go ahead and open it. So he opens the briefcase, and then he turns on the laptop, and he's like, boom. It's like, you shouldn't be joking about this stuff. The train's starting to slow down, and Otto says that they're losing power. And Sam's like, is it from the explosion? And Otto's like, yeah, I reckon. And Jess, she gets up to check it out. She groans, and Sam's like, no. He's like, I'll go. And Otto's like, he's like, just wait. He's like, you should know. And he's like, know what? He's like, I tried to help her. And he's like, tried to help who, Otto? So then we see that the older man, he's holding his wife in his arm. And Sam comes up to him. He's like, I'm so sorry. And then the guy's like, get us off this train. So Sam walks to the next car where the explosion was. There's like, charred everything, sparks, closes the door. Then this other guy comes up. He's like, I thought you said this would be over soon. And Sam just like walks past him. He's like, I'm working on it. He like stands between the cars. He's, because there's actually some parts where there's like an opening and you have to like kind of like jump across, like, or like hop across, whatever. So he stands there looking. And then an alarm goes off in a driver's car, and Jess, she's like, you need to keep going. And she's like, if we stop it and they find us, then they'll strike again. And he's like, what do you expect me to do? Sam returns. He's like, hey, this isn't one train, it's two. And Otto's like, technically, yes. And Sam's like, yeah, two pairs of carriages joined in the middle. He's like, the problem is it's in the back. So if we could ditch them, we can keep going. And Jeff's like, is that possible? Can we decouple the train? And Otto's like, yes, but we don't have much time. And Sam's like, so then we have to be quick. In the countryside, the dude's like, we need to tell him we've lost her. the lady's like, when Ling hears that she's figured out, he'll want her dead. And if he hears we lost her, he'll want us dead. So let's find her. And then because she figures that Marsha's going to want to try to call, so they should probably head to higher ground because they know she's going to try to get a signal. At control, news reports on the hijacking are out there. So Winter wonders, like, what do they know that they don't? The officer dude, he's like, the press is convinced that something's going on, that something's going to happen at the station. And, this is the thing. When Shady Detective was up top, then he walks over after he ends the call. He goes to some people behind a barricade. So I guess he's like talking to the press people there. And that other guy, the other officer, whoever, security guy, he saw him talking to the press. Mr. Deal thinks that, they switch tracks around to U7 now. Officer dude's like, well, they can't attack while everyone's watching. Winter says that, Sam probably knows that, so he's forcing their hand. Question is, can they catch him before they get there? Clara asks, it's like, and what happens when you catch him? What then? Officer dude gets on his phone and says that the target is on the U7 west of Brit Sud. Prepare to deploy. Winter just like turns her back. It's like, wait, isn't she supposed to be in charge? Because this dude, he's just like, just kill him, kill him, kill him. And regardless of that may not be the best move. I get that he's trying to neutralize the terrorists so to get the hostages safe, but it's like you don't have like all information. At the station, they're sitting around waiting. Shady Detective goes up to another guy, asks if they can talk, one operative to another. So they go into communication rooms, and Shady says, he's like, let's compare notes, because in my experience, it's always better when everyone's on the same page. He's like, so GSG-9, they have been stood down? And the guy's like, no, they're redeploying. And Shady's like, do we know where? And the guy doesn't answer, but then he's like, okay, my turn. Why have you been briefing the press? And then Shady Detective's like, I can see you don't understand the concept of sharing. We're done. And then the guy's like, what about the phone calls? Who else are you talking to? And now he's pointing his gun at Shady's chest. And he's like, one intelligence operative to another. So then this guy's radio goes off, and Shady hits him in the gut, then he hits him in the face, and then he hits him like a third time, and he puts him like in a sleeper hold. At the countryside, the guy and the lady and the dogs continue. Marsha's going up, and she's in pain. She takes out her phone, and she's like, come on. And she looks at her screen, and some notifications start popping up, like Instagram and whatever text and stuff like that. So she must have a signal now. Zara and Daniel, they're told that the transport for Stewart pulled up. Daniel gets a call from Marsha, and he's like, oh, are you with Nick? And she's like, Nick's dead. And he's like, you are right to be worried about me. And she said she didn't know how they knew that she'd be there, what they want, but they got dogs, they got guns. So he tells her to stay there. They'll get helicopters. And she's like, why are they doing this? And Daniel says, he's like, I don't know. He's like, sounds like they're using her to make Sam do whatever they want. And they're choosing today because, and then she's like, because of Kai. And so he apologizes, says that, they're doing what they can. And she's like, I need to talk to Sam. Daniel's like, that's not possible. So then we see Zara's on the phone, get a copter out there. Daniel tells Marsha to drop her location now. And she's like, I don't know how long my phone will last. And he's like, well, we're coming for you. And he's like, I love you. And she's like, I love you. So she sends her location. Zara makes arrangements for like an aerial search, 50 miles north of Inverness. Daniel says, kidnapping family members and using them as collateral. He's like, if that's not Cheapside, then I don't know what is. It's a Cheapside gang or whatever, that's their name. Stewart is getting moved out. Daniel grabs him, slams him against like the gate, the cage or whatever. He's like, call them off. And he's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, if anything happens to Marsha, he's like, I will personally guarantee that you fudging die like the rest of your family. So he tells the guard, he's like, because they're like stand down or whatever. And he's like, he murdered my mate. He was one of us. And you know how we usually deal with cop killers, don't you? And then Stewart's like, so arrest me. And Daniel like lunges for Stewart, but he gets held back. And Stewart like says some stuff. He's like, you muppet. And then Zara tells Daniel, they'll get Marsha, and if Stewart's involved, they'll get him too, but they have to catch him in the act. And in this part I was like, wait, what's going on here? Because some officers are searching a cell, so where it's like, okay, this is probably Stewart's, right? And this lady guard pops in, And she says that it's like, if he finds out you were here, he won't be a happy boy. And she's like, oh, I guess I can help. And then, so something happens here, because there's a point where, I don't know, if she looks at a bar of soap and she like shakes it or something like that. But then, we see more of this later. But at this point, it's like, wait, what happened there? Where'd that soap, whatever. So then the dude with Olivia and Faber manages to get into Sam's laptop. He hacked into or whatever. So they're going to start scraping emails. And while this is going on, Marcia is trying to call Sam's phone. Olivia finally notices. She's like, it's her. So then we see Marcia and Wood, and Olivia answers. She's like, hello, is this Marcia? And, she's confused. Marcia's like, who is this? So Olivia's like, my name's Olivia. I work with the British Embassy in Berlin. We've been trying to reach you. Marcia's like, I need to get a message to Sam. And Olivia's like, well, I'm afraid he's been caught up in a terrible incident. And Marcia's like, no. It's like, please, he needs to hear my voice. Like, I haven't got much time. So Faber hands Olivia like a recorder. So she's like, okay. So then Marcia's like, Sam, it's me. She's like, look, I know you're going to be worried about me, but I'm okay. Don't let them use me against you. Not today. So she hears some dogs start barking. She's like, I've got to go. So Faber's like, this is the proof Winter was asking for. Take these to the control center along with the evidence. Graham will arrange a police escort. So the two are moving with the dogs. The dude has the shotgun raised. They find her jacket. So that must be what the dog sniffed out to lead him there. The lady's like, well, maybe she'll freeze to death. So Marcia, she took off her jacket to throw off the scent. So, the dogs are going to go for the jacket while she runs another direction. So smart, but now she doesn't have her jacket. Faber asks the dude if he can tell him who sent Sam the emails or not. And the dude's like, well, I don't think I'll ever be able to say exactly who Nelson was talking to. Faber's like, well, you broke into his laptop easily enough. And the dude's like, well, whoever Nelson was talking to was using a lot of more sophisticated protection than he was. Faber looks at him like, huh? And the dude's like, he didn't want to say anything, but he spoke to a contact at the GCHQ, and they agreed with his assessment. So whoever sent them the stuff, they covered their tracks well. They used, P2P encryption, fake identities. It only points to one thing. And Faber's like, you think someone who works within the intelligence community? And the guy's like, military intelligence, most likely. Faber's like, German? And the guy's like, certainly someone with boots on the ground knowledge. So he's like, someone on the inside. So it's probably shady detective dude, right? On the train, Otto says that the train won't go much further. So if they're going to do this, they have to do it now. Sam asks them, talk them through the process. So one person has to go in each car. Jess is in pain, and Sam's like, are you going to be okay? And she's like, what do you think? So Otto says that they'll need them both. Sam says, he's like, if she does this one thing and then she gets off and she gets the help that she needs, Otto says that they should do it after the next station, and then we see them pass one. Wolf talks to the officer dude on the phone, so they're following the U7 path, they're driving the cars, whatever. He's told that the train's been sighted at the station they just passed, I guess. And then gung-ho officer dude, he's like, be ready to intercept. It's like he's I don't know why he wants like a shootout so badly. On the train, Sam and Jess walk through the cars, like, make room. So they see Jess, she's got like her arms crossed, they're like, what's wrong with her? And, she stops and she looks at Freddy's bike, and because, she's supposed to be watching it, and she ends up killing him. One of the teachers says to Sam, he's like, tell us what's going on. He's like, and he tells them to follow him, and teacher one's like, why? And Sam's like, just do it. And he's like, you and all the kids. So teacher two is like, no, wait. He's like, we're not following you. And Sam's like, you will if you want to get off the train. He's like, this could be your only chance. So teacher one thinks about it. He's like, let's do it. So he calls the kids. He's like, come on. Sam sees Benji's father checking if Jess is all right, because she took a seat. And he asks her, then he's like, can you tell me if I'll see my boy again? Sam calls like people to move. Jess bends over in pain. Benji's dad tries talking to Sam about Jess or something like that, but he just makes him move along. After a bunch move to the back, he squats and talks to Jess. He's like, we have to keep moving or we're dead. We have to get to the depot, okay? In the other driver's car, Jess says that, she's like, I didn't agree to this. If he finds out, he'll lose his poop. Sam says that they have to lose half this train to keep moving, so he'll understand that. And, they still got collateral. So if they can get the kids off, it's worth trying. Then annoying Becca, the one student, she's like frozen. She doesn't want to jump over to the next car. So even the kid that everyone was like making fun of, he's like, come on, Becca, come on, you can do it. And Sam tells him, to go back. But then the kid jumps back over to Becca. Teacher 2 like runs up. He's like, what's going on? Teacher 1 is with a couple kids, and like Becca, he's like, we're staying. And Sam calls Otto, and he says like, not to stop the train yet. But Otto's like, it's not me. So the train's like stopping itself. Sam curses like, they have to do this now. So Otto starts like talking him through the procedure. Sam and Jester have to push buttons at the same time. And so Sam, they do it, but she doesn't push hers because she's in so much pain. And Sam's like, come on, do this last thing, and we can go our separate ways. You'll never have to see me again. And because if they stay there, they're dead. Then Wolf and his stupid attack team, they start creeping towards the train. It's like, how did they get there so fast? It's like they're in cars and they moved along, whatever. Olivia arrives at control. She goes up to Winter and she's like, you need to listen to this recording. Officer Dude's like, we don't have time for distractions. Wolf's team's like in position and Olivia's like, 30 seconds, that's all I ask. She plays Marsha's recording, don't let them use me, not today. Winter says that, he's like, that was Marsha. And Clara says, the mother of his child. So Olivia says this explains everything. Officer Dude's like, if we're going to strikes, like we need to do this now. It's our last opportunity. But again, why is he so keen to try shooting everything? So Olivia says that this is proof Winter needed that Sam is being coerced. Winter says, well, that may be the case, but it doesn't change the fact that he has taken hundreds of hostages. Officer Dude says that the strike team is ready. Winter's like, good. And then he says, like, on her word, Mr. Deal kills the power, and they'll take the train. So Olivia, she's like trying to beg, and she's like, this isn't Sam. Someone else has their finger on the trigger. Finding them is the only way to stop this. Sam tells Jess, he's like, we can do this. And she's like, even if I escape, when he finds me, he's never going to let me live anyways. No loose ends. That's how it works. Sam says that, she might be prepared to die today. He might be too. They made a choice, but the people on the train didn't. And she kind of, I don't know if, I can't remember, she kind of like laughed or something like that. She's like, you didn't make a choice to be here. And he's like, no, but I had to accept the risk to save other people. He's like, you can too. He's like, come on, let those kids go. So she starts to move. Sam calls Otto that they're back on. So they push the buttons, and then it's disconnected. And then the power goes off. Sam's like, okay, tell me that was you. And Otto's like, that wasn't me. And Jess like, they're coming. So this is the thing. If at control, if they have power, if they have the ability to turn off the power, then it's like, why didn't they do this earlier when they're like, okay, where are they at, whatever. And, they're passing all these stations. Why not, cut the power? I mean, I guess it's like, well, do they have guns? Are they going to start shooting hostages? What's going on? But it just seems silly that they just do that now. So they enter the rear carriage, the guards, the attack team, attack squad, enter the rear carriage. They got night vision, goggles, and they got laser sighting. Wolf says, he's like, looks like heavy explosive. They're moving forward. And he's like, no targets, no hostages. We're about to enter carriage 3. So, and I don't know where they keep getting. There's like a couple hundred people. It doesn't even seem like there's like 30 people. I mean, I don't know where they're getting like 200. Because if there's only 4 cars and one is blown up and empty, so I don't know. So they're going to carriage 3. And then they see a bunch of people standing around. It's kind of creepy looking with the night vision, whatever. But so they say it's like full of hostages, at least 50. I was like, I don't know if it's that one. Mostly youngsters. They motion them to move like quietly. Teacher 1 says that there's more up there. They're trying to get him to go, but he doesn't want to. So, but they push forward. They come to the older couple. Dude still holding his dead wife. They tell him that he has to go. They say that they got hurt. They'll take his wife. So they're like preparing to enter carriage 2. Jess is like, they're here. It's like, so then they blow the door lock, and it's still pitch black. Sam's like, I'm not armed. So then, whether it's Wolf or someone reports like, Tango 1 acquired, Tango 2 identified. She is holding something. And Sam's like, Jess, no. And then, pew, 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 she goes down. So Wolf, Tango 2 neutralized. And he's like, don't move. Sam's like, I'm not armed. I just want to talk. And slowly he's like, Clara, can you hear me? Yes, Sam, we're listening. I've been speaking to you since the beginning. I've not lied to you. I've not hurt anyone. You know that. Now you think I want to be here? You think I want to have control? You think if you shoot me, then you save the passengers? But you don't. You sentence them to death. And then Wolf's like, I have a clear shot awaiting orders. And there's like a, laser target thing like right on Sam's chest. And stupid officer dude, he's like, he's bluffing. That's what he does. Olivia says that he's not. It's exactly like he said. Sam's not the real threat here. And Winter's like, well, what's the alternative? They continue with the handover. Sam's like, Clara, I promise you, the only way to save these hostages is to let this hijack continue. Let's finish this properly. We'll send this train to the end of the line. So the laser sight, it's still on Sam's chest, and we're like waiting. So it's like, what are they going to do? And then the power comes back on. And he's like, auto. So the train starts moving forward, and Wolf like walks up the door, watches them leave. So Sam's on the other cart. Sam closes the door. And then we see the bomb under the non-moving train car. So it's like, this is where I'm not sure, like, what does this mean? Because I'm assuming Shady Detective can monitor or somehow, I don't know if there's sensors that show the train is stopped. Are there separate sensors for the different bombs? Yeah, I don't know. So we see a guy in like a hoodie gets on a train. It's Berlin or Warsaw, so it's the bomb maker guy or whatever. He's like looking for overhead space for like a place to put his bag, and in here, let me help you with that. So it's the other bearded detective, the good guy, the good detective, and he's like, Marco, or is it Joseph? It's really hard to keep track. And the guy's like, who the hell are you? So then he shows him his ID. He's like, you left your apartment in kind of a mess, but don't worry, we cleaned it all up for you. And then two like police dudes come up, they got like vests to say police. He's like, and now you're going to help us. So the kid passengers, I think they're off the train and they're like walking up at the platform, whatever. Teacher 2 asks one of the guys, like, are the hijackers dead? And the guy's like, I can't tell you that. And then he's like, well, what about the other kids? He's like, are they okay? And he's like, I'm afraid I can't tell you that either. So at first it's like, I felt like he couldn't tell him that because he doesn't have the authority or the other guy doesn't have the authority. But then it's maybe because he's like, I don't know. Shady detective, he tries calling the phone. Unfortunately, and this is like a poor planning on their part, I don't know what Sam was thinking. It's next to dead Jess. And, you can hear, all units, we're moving the prisoner to Brit Sud. The handover is back on. And then they call Linder. I was like, who's Linder? They're like, we're leaving without you. So that's the guy that Shady Detective was talking to. And then I think Otto says the same, like, it's over. It's like, they know you're innocent. She's dead. So we can just stop and let everyone else off? And he's like, no, not yet. We continue. And Otto's like, why? Everyone knows you're not the bad guy. He's like, you have to keep pretending like I am. Otherwise, none of these people are safe. Neither is Marcia. It's like, I'm just someone's puppet. Which, it still makes sense because, they still have Marcia as far as Sam knows. Stewart's taken back to his cell. The lady guard, she's there. She turns on the lights outside. And then he enters and looks, who touched my stuff? And he's like, come on, it stinks like cheap cologne and smokes. He's like, which means you. And she's like, why don't you wash your mouth out? And she hands him a bar of soap. But it's like, it's the fake soap, right? And then he's like, oh, good job. So then he opens it with his back to the camera in his cell. And I paused it. I looked at it. I think it might be like a smartwatch. So maybe she handed him a smartwatch so he can communicate with whoever I don't know. And that's where the episode ends. So I don't know what's going to happen now with Shady Detective because he can't talk to Sam anymore. I don't know what Sam was thinking, leaving the phone with Jess. It doesn't make any sense. So one episode left. Yeah, we'll see. I don't understand if they get the train to the depot, where are they going to go from there? Because and it's like, oh, tell all the police that's where we want to do the handoff. We'll see. One episode to go. Okay, Monarch, Legacy of Monsters. So I think we're a week behind-ish, something like that. Season 2 started. We're going to talk about Season 2, Episode 1, Cause and Effect. Now, what's weird, I don't know if I'm in a bubble, but I feel like I don't hear anyone really talking about this, but this is based on the Godzilla and King Kong shared universe that we sort of have going on still, and it's such a good show, but I feel I must be going to the wrong places. I feel like I never really hear anyone talking about the Apple TV shows, and they have like great stuff, so I've been obviously talking about Hijack, and there's this and Severance and Silo, and there's just like so much good stuff, and it's quality, and we got Kurt Russell here, we got Wyatt Russell, and I think it's brilliant casting. They play the same character, in the past and in the present-ish. So it's just I just really have come to like be interested in these characters, and it goes back to the Godzilla movie. When did that come out? It must have been, was it like 2000 something? I'm trying to remember when that was. And so all these movies are tied, and then we're seeing more. We're seeing the government like group that's trying to deal with the Titans and trying to stop them and understand them, and seeing like how the agency was created, and so we had Godzilla pop in from time to time in the first season, and this the first season, spoiler, ended we see King Kong, and then he's in this episode, and so it's really cool. So if you care about any of this stuff, you should be watching the show, and go back and check out the first season. So assuming you're listening, you have watched that first season, so we are gonna get into it to see what goes on, because there's things that start off like pretty crazy. So it starts off picking up from last season. They're on this island. There's like panic at the base, and King Kong, he's there. Everyone's running. What's weird, it's like you're not really used to seeing this, but I guess Kong sometimes isn't in the best mood, and he's like flinging things. He's like slamming his fist. He's like causing explosions. He like stomps on some people. But as I watch this, it's like, is it accidental? I don't think he's necessarily like, oh, there's some people there, I'm going to step on them. I think he's just like walking. He's so big, and he just can't help it. So I'll like the main characters get into a helicopter, and then but they're like right behind Kong, and he turns and looks at him and like roars. So there's like obviously stuff going on here because this is his island, and he kind of coexists with them, whatever. But it's obviously that there's something that's upsetting him, and we kind of get little hints of that later on. So then, so it also, this started off is Kaiko, who it was like in the 50s, whatever, when Monarch started, and she was there. But then what we discovered the first season, it was thought that she died, but she didn't die. And now her son is like an adult. And she missed his entire life because in this underworld, whatever, time passes differently. So while I don't remember if it was this episode, I have to like check something on there where she feels like she was just there for, I think it was like 57 days or something like that, but it was like decades, and that's the same thing that happened to Lee Shaw, to Kurt Russell's character, where he was there, and he popped out. I don't remember. It might have been like the 80s or something like that. So that explains how if he was like 20 something in like the late 50s, how's he around now in like the 2010s or whatever year they're talking about? So it's it's cool stuff. So Kaiko they found her. She's came back with the others, but they didn't all make it. So Kurt Russell didn't make it. He was hanging on the outside of his pod as they're getting sucked back into the regular world, and so now some like people like are in like hazmat suit type thing. They're not hazmat suits. I don't know what you call them, but they're in like the medical suits, whatever. They're checking out Kaiko. She's in a Monarch medical facility, and her vision's a little blurry, and she tries getting up, but they tell her to stay still, and she's kind of panicking because she doesn't know where Hiroshi, her son, is, and because she at the end of last season she meets him and she sees he's an adult, and it's like crazy. So she finally like fights through them, and she gets up out of bed and pushes her way past and goes down the hall. Like you hear one person is like, oh, just let her go. She's not going anywhere. So she's calling out to Hiroshi, and she goes up some stairs and she finds like an exit door. She opens it, and it's like really bright out there, so her eyes have to adjust. And then Hiroshi comes up behind her, and she's like, "Where are we?" And he's like, "This is your legacy." And she's like, "I don't understand." He's like, "This is Monarch." And then the camera pans back, and it's like this huge ship. And it says like Outpost 18 on there. So it's not quite a battleship. It's like a speedboat battleship. It's like this huge thing, but it looks fast. It doesn't look like the big clunky square, whatever rectangular, whatever aircraft carriers. But so then we see Tim. So Tim is kind of like he was kind of annoying in the first season, kind of like the nerdy guy, whatever, like that. But he's really come around. He's really proven himself, to be an important character and caring about the welfare of others or all that. So he tells the deputy director Natalia Verdugo that there's 16 confirmed dead. There's a dozen in sick bay. There's 2 in critical. And they're looking at drone footage of the island, but then there's like this pterodactyl thing kind of like attacks it. So Tim says it's not just Kong. Something's got everything on the island frothing at the mouth. And Tim says, it's Kong's island. The only reason he lets them stay there is because they don't stir the pot. But then Verdugo, she's like, well, obviously something is stirring the pot, and that's what he was there for. He was there to prevent that. He's the Monarch liaison for Apex Cybernetics, and his response is make sure that the protocol was followed. And he's like, they were. They must have run over like a dozen tests, and Kong just sat there watching them. He's like, this is something different. Then there's some banging, and Kate and the others ask, like, why had they been locked up and everything. So they're like, you have no right to do that. So Kaiko thinks back to Lee letting go and like falling back in a storm. When the pod's like going, because he was just hanging on. And so then she's like, she wants to know who's in charge. So there's this lady, I think her name was Brenda. She says that, Apex are responsible for bringing them back. Then Natalia like cuts in and introduces herself as deputy director. And, she says, she's deputy director of Monarch. She tells Kaiko that, she'll find a lot has changed in the times that she's been away. And she's like really unsteady. She's still like dizzy and everything like that. Hiroshi says that, she needs to rest, but she's like, no, I'm fine. I'm just, a little dizzy. And Natalia says that it's a result of how long she's been gone in Axis Mundi, as, she calls it, whatever, because I think that's what Kaiko called it. And she's like, it should wear off. But then Kaiko's like, Miss Deputy Director, it's like, when are we going back to get Lee Shaw? And she's like, we're not. She's like, not now. And she's like, what? And then Kate loudly, she's like, she's upset too. She's like, why? And Tim's like, Kong. And so Verdugo says that they believe that his rampage may have something to do with the operation at the Apex space. And she's like, it's regrettable that the colonel was lost. And Kaiko's like, he wasn't lost. He stayed behind so we could make it out. So Natalia says, setting foot on that island right now is a suicide mission. And she's like, well, I know Lee Shaw. It's like, he would never leave any of us behind. He's alive. She's like, I know it. She's like, please, please. And then she like falls forward, like losing her balance. So she like I think she kind of like fainted, like passed out, because it's just like so much strain on her and everything. Then it cuts to a flashback. We see, Kaiko and Bill, her husband, they're in this boat. Lee's there, and there's like some dude, like captain boat, just little ship. They're at Santa Soledad, southern Chile. So it's 1957. They're talking about like mythical beasts, and Lee mentions how they're trying to prove sea serpents exist. Bill says that based on the maritime records in Santiago, there were reports of like a violent whirlpool and sightings of massive sea creatures going back like 200 years. So they reach their destination, they dock. The boat captain seems to be like in a rush to leave because he like takes some money from them or anything like that, and he kind of looks angry and he just wants to get out of there. And then they walked out the dock and there's like a bunch of birds just like fly around formation, take off. So it's like, okay, that seems a little weird. And there's like all these like little shacks, and Kai wonders like, where is everyone? And you see like one dude kind of like peeking out his door, and Kai kind of like nods her head at him, whatever. Then he like goes back inside, and you can see like someone like looking through the window, like at the curtain. So it's like, this is kind of freaky, whatever. There's this like lady sitting on a chair, like a rocking chair, like outside her place. They continue walking straight, and there's like this big like round stone thing in like the center of like the town, I guess. There's like these markings and carvings on there. There's like eyes and like critters and stuff like that. So they're like, oh, that's kind of weird, whatever. They enter this like tavern, pub, or whatever. Then Lee nods at them, but they don't say anything. Everyone's just like kind of staring at them. And then Lee suggests that Kai wait outside, and she asks him, she's like, do you want to wait outside? Because she's like, I'm not going to wait out here. Bill just starts inside because he sees this kind of like this big critter thing, like crustacean, like creature hanging, whatever. And he tries asking the men, what is that? Did it come from the sea around there? And he takes out his camera. And he's like, do you mind? And then this little guy, he like gets up, knocks the camera out of his hand, and he grabs Bill by the shirt, and he like throws him down. He says that, he's talking in Spanish. He says that, he walks in there like he owns the place, whatever. And Lee runs up to, try to help him out, protect him, whatever. And he's like, he just wanted photos. And he's like, do you want more? He's like, dinero? And the guy's like, we don't know you. And Lee's like, no necesitas poner así, amigo. You don't have to, act like that. The guy pulls out his blade and holds it up. And he's like, no soy tu amigo. He's like, I'm not your friend. And then the bartender lady, she's sternly, she's like, put the knife away, Tomas. And then Lee's like, he just like stands his ground, which is, what I kind of like about him. And this other guy says like, to Tomas, he's like, enough. And he's like, I'm sure our friends here didn't mean to cause a problem, right? And Lee's like, right. And then this guy like kind of, he dusts off the camera, he hands it back to Bill, and he's like, no photographs, please, no photos. And he's like, okay. And Lee tells Bill that, he's like, you got to learn to read the room. So then it cuts to the present on the outpost ship. Kate's like sitting in this room, like with some bunks. Kentaro, her half brother, comes in with a glass of water, and he says that, they're wrapping things up out there. So while Kate was in Axis Mundi in the underworld, while her brother was with their dad, and working on trying to get them back. Then they were gone for 2 years in like regular world time. He says they're wrapping things up, then they'll take her to Tokyo, then more medical tests and debriefings, whatever she wants, and then they'll put her on a plane for home. And she's like, well, what about you? She's like, is this your world now, working with Dad? And he kind of pauses. He says that he hasn't had time to think about it. And he says, for 2 years, job was to get her back, and now she's back. And she's like, not all of us. And, he says, well, it's not like they wanted to leave him. He's like, you heard Verdugo. And she's like, you don't know what it was like down there. It's like, Shaw would do it for us. And he's like, I don't know, would he? And she's like, Kentaro, we never would have known Dad was even alive if it hadn't been for him. And Kentaro's like, that's because it served his agenda. And she's like, he never lied to us. We asked him to help us find Dad, and he did. And Kentaro's like, you don't even know if he's alive. I mean, May said she saw him fall at least 100 feet. So May's she was Kentaro's friend in Tokyo. She's like this computer hacker, whatever, was kind of like working both sides or whatever. And she has a different name, but they know her as May. So he's like, May said that Shaw fell like 100 feet, and Kate's like, well, you can bet against him. I'm not giving up. So then it cuts back. We see like Lee falling, and he lands. Poof, but it's like almost like a big pile, like leaves or soft ground. And so he's like on his back. It's still a lot, but at least he probably doesn't have anything broken or anything like that. He looks up and he sees like light from the portal, and then the shimmer kind of goes away, and he like just sits up, and so he's all alone there, and he's like, now what? Kai's lying in a med bay bed. Hiroshi's like sitting next to her, like humming and like holding her hand. Kate comes in, asks, how is she? And he says that, she's sedated. He's like, it's effective having been in Axis Mundi for so long. She needs time to acclimate, so she'll be okay like in a couple hours. Then Kate's like, I'm going back for Shaw. And he's like, going back to the island? And she's like, Kentaro says it's some kind of nexus point. And he's like, that's a theory, but it doesn't matter. Monarch has shut down our operation. We are prohibited from setting foot on that island. And Kate's like, when have you ever followed the rules? So she like walks out. He gets up and calls after her. He's like, you don't know what you're doing. You're going to get yourself killed. And she's like, then help us. She's like, she's referring to Kai, his mom. It's like, she needs him. And Hiroshi's like, she has us. He's like, I won't allow it. And she just like looks at him. She's like, after G-Day, you disappeared for a year. It's like, a year. You didn't even pick up a phone to let us know you were alive. He's like, okay, that was a mistake, but it's not an excuse for you to do something crazy. And she's like, I'm not asking for permission. Then he's like, well, then I'm coming with you. So that other lady, I think her name is Brenda. She goes to the bunk where May is sitting, and she's like, I hope I'm not disturbing you. And she's like, Axis Mundi and back. She's like, what a relief. And May's just like, what do you want? And she's like, before I leave, because so they like work together before or whatever. She's like, before I leave, I wanted to see how you're doing. And May's like, no, you don't. You don't care. And Brenda, if that's her name, she's like, I spent 2 years, and I wouldn't even tell you how much money to get you out of there. It's like, I approved the mission. I supervised it. So actually, I do care, Cora. So I think her real name is Cora, but we call her May. And she's like, Apex is on the cusp of figuring out how to live with these titans. And you can take us over the finish line. It's like, no more G-Days. Or you can stay here with your friends who have absolutely no idea what you're capable of and do God knows what. And she's like, there's an extra, she's like, there's an extra seat for you if you want it. So the helicopter leaves. May like watches her go, and Kate's like, oh, was that Brenda? And May's like, yeah, she offered what sounds like a job. And she says, she just wants a computer code that she wrote. Last time she fell for her BS. And, she probably is just trying to crawl her way into Walter Simmons' good graces on the back of her work. And she's like, well, still, it's, nice to have a place to go. She doesn't know what any of them are going to do now after, everything they've been through, time travel, bringing her grandma back from the dead, what they saw. And May's like, insane poop. And May's like, or she says that, Kate got what she was looking for. She was looking for answers. She's like, did you forget? And, she's like, has she talked to him yet? And Kate says that she might have set her expectations too high. May says that, he and Kentaro figured it out. They seem tight. And Kate's like, well, Kentaro had 2 years with him that I didn't have. And May's like, well, maybe that's the point. You need to give it time. Kate says that, they don't have time, but she's not leaving without Shaw. So May starts to protest, but then Kate's like, she's like, I need your help. Kate walks into like the control room, and there's like lots of computers. On a screen, she sees like Kate, Kentaro, and Hiroshi sneaking into like in the halls, like on the security feed. Then like a hand clamps down on the back of the monitor, and it's Tim. He's like, pretty impressive, huh? And she's like, yeah, so cool. So he goes on about Outpost 18, Seaborne Command and the control platform. He lists like a bunch of stuff that it has, what it can do. And then she kind of has to like stop him because he's like about to see like the front of the screen. And she's like, how fast is a knot? Because he was talking about like how many knots it can go. And it turns out that he like might not actually know. So, he's here bragging about all this stuff. And something as simple as like, how fast is a knot? He's like, hang on a sec. But so we see the three, they go in this one room, and they grab like some stuff, some supplies and some life jackets. They get into, there's like one of like inflatable like speedboat things. Kentaro opens the launch door, and then you hear, wait. May's like, she's like, what the hell? You're gonna, go without me? So she got away and made her way there. They managed to launch without anyone like noticing, because then you see there's like taking off across the water. And when they opened the door, like an alarm thing went off. I don't know, it's just a signal the door is open, but it's like no one noticed this. So there's this like big storm cloud, and they're like heading right for it because the island's on the other side, so they have to like go through it. As they're going along, you see like these giant crabs like on the cliffside, and then they go up on shore. Hiroshi says that the whole island is in a frenzy and that the storm is closing faster than they thought. And he's like 8 hours, but Kentaro's like more like 6. So they head into the island, like into like the trees, and then they have to duck behind some because like this pterodactyl thing swoops and like lands in one of the trees. Then this other like flying, it's almost like a bat. I don't know what it is. This big thing, it comes up behind it, zaps it with energy like out of its mouth, and then it just like bites and like snaps its neck. Then it swoops down and it lands by like Kate and May. They kind of like had split up. They to hide behind trees, and so they're like closing their eyes and like holding each other. And then the thing like reaches down, grabs this like giant slug from the ground, like chomps it, and then it flies off. Cut to the past again. Lee, Bill, and Kai are still at the pub, and they're looking at discussing the giant thing hanging. Lee says it looks like a sick lobster found at the bottom of the ocean. Kai's like, well, it could be a fossil, maybe a species that's never been cataloged. Bill's like, well, why would the guys, try to gut him like a fish or a fossil? And Shaw says, it doesn't mean it's a monster. And Bill says, well, it doesn't mean it's not. And Bill's been like working on a sketch, like everything like that. So Kai takes the book and starts makes some adjustments or whatever. She's drawing on it too. And then everyone is still kind of like glaring at them. They keep looking back at them. So it's really not a friendly vibe there. And Elise says that he's getting the feeling that these guys don't want them around there, so they should probably leave. Bill's like, are you kidding? And Shaw's like, no. And Bill's like, they're obviously hiding something. So he's like, I can't wait to go out exploring in the morning. Then the bartender lady comes up, and Kai like closes the sketchbook. It was almost like, it's like, how obvious are you making it that you don't want her to see that? So, they're like, no thanks. Because, when she offers her more drinks, then she tells Bill, she's like, dance with me. And he kind of like stammers, whatever. He's like, oh, I'm flattered, but I'm spoken for. And then bartender like turns to Kai. She's like, you don't mind, do you? And Kai's like, oh, no. So the bartender's like, I'll bring him back. And Lee and Kai kind of laugh. So they kind of talk a little bit. And then, she's like, oh, your dance card must be full back home. And he's like, not really. And she's like, well, what about, the redhead from Puckett's office and whatever? And he's like, nah, there's nothing. And she's like, well, you just need to settle down before you get yourself in trouble. And he's like, well, what's the fun in that? Then she's like, well, what happened to the picket fence, the cookouts, the garden party with the neighbor, kids? And she's like, wasn't that the plan? And he's like, in Army, they teach you no battle plan survives the first shot. So she's like, why has it got to be a battle? And he says that it feels like, anything worth having, always is. In the present, on the island, there's like a slight roar. And so May's like, well, we should go back. And Kong, they're like right by Kong. They can see him. He's like sleeping. Kentaro says, there's no other way. So, they have to go. She's like, don't make a sound. None of them are like watching where they're walking because their like eyes are glued on Kong. And then May steps on a twig and it snaps. And they all stop. I'm like, are you serious? Like, it wasn't even that big of a stick, but it doesn't wake him up, thank goodness. So they start walking again, but then Kong starts moving. He like rolls over, and his hand starts coming down. He's like, it's swinging down, and it's headed right towards right towards them. Hiroshi's like, run, and she's like just frozen. So Kate pushes her out of the way, and then Hiroshi tries to go to her, but then the hand just like thuds down, and they are all like frozen with shock, just staring. He's like, wait, did Kate just get smashed by this giant hand? But then she comes out from like between his fingers. And then Hiroshi, he's like bent over in relief because they thought she was dead. Back at Outpost 18, Kai is up. She stumbled about. Tim sees her and goes up to her. And he's like, Dr. Randa. He's like, you really should be resting. And she's like, my whole life was a struggle to get someone to call me doctor. And she's like, maybe the world has changed for the better. So he shows her like the computers and everything, and she's like, are these images from artificial satellites like Sputniks? And he's like, yeah, but more sophisticated. And she says that she hopes she can be useful some way. He's like, Dr. Randa, he's like, you are everything that has been missing from this place. It's like all this tech collecting data, like for what? You could return Monarch to what it was, what it always intended to be. It's like, you could do that. And she's like, well, if these can show us where Kong is on the island, we could avoid him, right? And he's like, well, I mean, he is pretty fast. And she's like, Dr. Verdugo, you said it was too dangerous to go back to get Lee. But if we use this, we could find a safe way back to your base, yes? And she's like, I'm not risking any more lives. I'm sorry. And she's like, look at what I'm dealing with. And she pulls up the footage from the base, like everyone's running. And then Kai's like, what's that? And Verdugo is like, it's security footage. And, she's trying to figure out why Kong attacked. And she's like, no. It's like, what is that? She's like, can you roll back the film? She thinks it's film, but it's video. So they play it back, and she's like, right there. And Verdugo's like, where? She's like, what am I looking at? And she's like, can you go closer? So it does zoom in. She's like, you said the island was Kong's realm, that he would try to protect it. And Tim's like, well, that's what we believe. And Kai's like, is that what he was trying to do? Protect it? And they're like, from what? In the past, in the pub, Bill is trying to get away from the bartender, to catch his breath or whatever. And she's, she like kind of whispers to him, because, the guys are still kind of like watching. She's like, I know why you're here. And he plays off. He's like, oh, what are you talking about? And she says that she knows he's interested in this. And then she shows like a tattoo like on her kind of like shoulder, like almost like end of her clavicle, whatever. And he's like, okay, yeah. He's like, what does it mean? Does it have to do with that? And he points to the big fossil thing. And she's like, of course. He's like, okay, how? And she's like, why do you want to know? And he's like, I used to be a sailor. Many years ago, something came from the sea, took my ship and my shipmates. And ever since, I've been trying to learn as much as I can about monsters. What they want, how we can coexist with them. It's like, I think you know what I'm talking about. And she's like, this is their religion. She's like, do you understand? He is like their God. They worship him and the sea provides. And he's like, who? Who do they worship? She's like, they will do what they need to do to protect their secret. You have to leave here. In the present on the island, the four reach the smashed base area so that the pod that they return is still there. Kentaro says, not to get comfortable because, they're not any safer there than they were like out in the trees. Here, they're actually more exposed. So Kate says, well, they better work fast then. On the outpost, looking at security footage, where they stop, Tim asks Kai, like, do you really think that's what Kong is worried about? It's pretty small. And she says that, they don't act alone. And then this lady comes up to Verdugo. She's like, one of the sea zodiacs is missing, and we can't find Dr. Randa, the other Dr. Randa, his children, or Cora Mateo, May. She's like, anywhere on the ship. Kai is like, they must have gone back for Lee. So Verdugo like curses. And the Kai, she's like, well, you got what you wanted. And Kai's like, we have to warn them. And Verdugo says that she needs to tell her everything she knows or what she thinks she knows. On the island, they're looking at the equipment. This one piece, Hiroshi says that, oh, it's like the eternal batteries are dead. And May's like, well, you can hardwire that. And he says that, Kong tore the grid apart. So they'll need to get the backup generators running. And Kentaro's like, I'll go. Because, he knows where that. And Hiroshi's like, with the fence perimeter down. It's like, you don't know what else may have gotten in. And, he says that he knows where the power panel is. So Hiroshi's like, you shouldn't go alone. And then he like looks at May. Hiroshi gets the pod like level because it was like there's like some debris under it. So he pulls this big things out, whatever. Kate finally breaks the silence. And she's like, why'd you do it? Did you need a second family because Mom and I weren't good enough? He's like, no, it wasn't like that. She's like, then what was it like? What were you thinking? He's like, if you must know, I wasn't thinking. And she's like, that's not good enough. And he's like, believe what you like. He's like, Emiko, Kentaro's mother, worked at Monarch. She shared my world. It was very natural for us to be together. And she's like, well, what about Mom? And he's like, it was very different with Caroline. Monarch was still a secret back then, and I couldn't tell her what I did. Kate's like, so you lied to her? He's like, I never had to lie. I could be who I was with her, and I loved her for that.
And she's like, how do you love two people at the same time? He's like, it's not something you decide to do.
In the past, the three are standing outside the pub. They're staring. I think it's like the moon, like a blood moon or something like that. They're like, "Oh, is that ominous? Fortuitous?" And Lee's like, "Well, what's next?" Bill says that that they go exploring in the morning. Lee's like, "Yeah, and the locals love us. It shouldn't be too hard to get a room without getting stabbed." And then Jesus, the bartender like darts out from the side, like scares him. She asks Bill if he told them, and Kaiko's like, "Tell us what?" He's like, was going to. And she's like, it is dangerous for you to stay here. And Lee's like, really? He's like, no poop. And Lee's like, well, that usually means that there's something worth finding out. Lee says, it usually means it's time to leave. So bartender's like, you should listen to your friend. And he's like, thank you. And she's like, I can help you get a boat if you must, but you must hurry. And then Kaiko's like, is it true? Are you hiding something? So she's like kind of silent for a little bit. And she's like, if I show you, will you leave? In the present on the island, Kentaro gets the power going, but there's like some sparks, but it turns on. Then they see like a shadow, like of a monster. They hear some roars, and there's more than one of like the crawling lizard. It looks like, actually, no, I'm not sure. I don't remember. It looked like there's more than one, but maybe there was just one. So he like throws a flashlight, and they run the opposite direction. And they end up getting kind of separated. So the creature's like running at May, and then Kentaro yells for her. He's like, get out of the way. He's driving like a forklift. So he manages to like impale it against the wall. This lets them, like catch their breath. And he's like, Shaw better be alive. Lee, meanwhile, Shaw, is walking through the trees, like cautiously. There's lots of like little birds or something, flying around. They like, he then comes like face to face with this like giant, like multi-horned pig thing, like a boar, and it has like arrows in it. I'm assuming it's from May, so she must have like tried scaring it off or whatever. He pulls out, he has this like little knife. It's like maybe like 3 or 4 inches, I don't know. And then it cuts to in the present. The helicopters are flying into the storm. It's like Tim, Kai, Verdugo, they're like in one of them, and the pilot says that the storm is closer than they thought. So, they should turn back. But Kai's like, no, it's like, we keep going. On the island, they're plugging things in. Kentaro and May return. They say that they have to go because they're not alone. Either they do it now or they go. Kate asks her dad, she's like, what are you waiting for? And then they hear like the helicopters. So it looks like they might not be able to land because there's like so much rubble and stuff like that. And dad's like, Kate, it's like we spent over a year testing this under optimal conditions before we could get you back. These conditions are not optimal. It's like, they're coming for us. And she's like, you said it, we could do it. He's like, I said I could try. She's like, then try. We fell into another world. She's like, you didn't know if we were alive, but you came here and you did all of this anyways. You did it for me. She's like, I need to do it for Shaw. So the bartender in the past takes them someplace. It's like dark. They're using flashlights, and she has a lantern. And they're like, where are you taking us? And she's like, remember, I show you, you leave. So they go like in this kind of cave. There's like fossils on the wall, and like big. Then there's like drawings or whatever. There's like a big cavern, drawings, and she's like, those in the village wait year after year for their god to return to bless the waters and bring the bounty of the sea. In the present on the island, Verdugo, Tim, and Kai, they manage to get out of the hut. They land somewhere and they come out. Verdugo yells, like, you need to come, right now. Kate's like, we're ready to send down the pod. Verdugo says, the storm wall is clothing. It's like, if we don't get off this island in 10 minutes, we're never getting off. And Kate's like, we just need a few more minutes. So her dad tries getting her. She's like, come on. But then, May's like pulling her. Kai says that, she's like, you tried, but if you open up that gate again, you don't know what you could unleash. And she's like, I already lost one family. I don't want to lose any more. Hiroshi like puts his hand out to like, come on. And she thinks back to when she was like falling and like the big pit, like Lee grabbed her hand, and he's like, don't let go of me. So she goes to control. Kaiko's like, don't. And then she hits enter. The device, it's like, it says device ready, enable. So this little orb thing that they kind of set up, it starts spinning, shoots out like an energy like blast. There's like some feedback, whatever. This energy wave kind of goes off. It wakes up Kong. and someone yells like, "It's gonna pull us in!" So like things are getting sucked into the portal. They're like, "We got to get out of here!" And then the pod ship thing gets like sucked in. Kate's like trying, she's struggling to stay by the laptop so she can like control the thing. On the other side, he's still looking at the big wild boar thing, and then he sees like a flash of light from the portal, and then he sees like the pod like come gliding down. He's like, "Oh God, please!" So he runs to it. It lands by this big pile of something, whatever. Or I don't know if there's something underneath. There's like some lights. It must be like a creature or something like that. And he like curses, and then a bunch of small critters start crawling behind him. So he curses again, moves towards forward towards like the pod. As he's running, the little critters are jumping on his back, and he gets like knocked down. He's trying to fling them off, and it's like hard to keep his balance. He makes it to the pod, and he's trying to climb up. He has to like kick one off. It's grabbing onto his leg. Opens the hatch, and so there's like this big tentacle thing that's like close. One tries like entering the hatch, I think, and then, he just starts like punching it, whatever. Manages to get the hatch closed. Puts on his like seatbelt. Hits the controls, and like this alarm goes off. He starts going up, and then the big creature thing is starting to go through the portal too. So he curses again. On the island, they say that they have to get out of there. They can see tentacles coming through. Lee's like turns, and then there's a critter inside with them. So it like jumps at his face, but he manages to like grab it, like hold it back. He tries slamming it back against the wall, but doesn't really do anything. Pulls out his little knife. He like stabs it, like I don't know if he got it in the eye or whatever. Kai is like staring at the creature coming through. She's like almost like frozen, and Tim like starts like trying to pull her away. And Kate's like she's still at the laptop. Tentacles are swinging about. And then Verduga, she gets swatted by one, goes flying. And they're like, holy crap. Lee finally gets the bug thing off him. He puts it down and he's like, puts his foot on it. It's still like struggling, fighting. So he's like, trying to keep his foot down. He like manages to hit some more controls. It's still fighting, everything like that. And finally he does something. I don't know if he like sliced it open, but I think he got rid of it. The pod things flies out of portal. Lee lands, opens the hatch. Kate calls to him. Hiroshi grabs her. Kong lumbers up, and he like kind of like squats down and like looks down. He's like, what's going on here, or whatever. And then he smashes the power orb. So I think the energy thing, it's like kind of like bothering him or annoying him. He can sense it that this is causing a problem. So he like when he smashes it, he barely misses Kate, and Kentaro. But it's like I'm pretty sure he wasn't aiming for them. He was just aiming for the orb. And then the energy portal thing closes. So Kong hits his chest a couple times like that. Then he starts running. The others make it to the helicopter. Pilot like, "Where's Verdugo?" And no one says anything. He's like, "Where's Verdugo?" And Tim's like, "She's gone." So they lift off. The others are they make it to Lee and Kate. They're like in the other helicopter, or maybe it's Lee and Kai, and he's like, "You probably should have left me." And she looks at him. She like shakes her head. The helicopter flies over Kong. The tentacle thing made it to the water. It's like swims away. Kong goes out into the water, like kind of up to his waist. He like slams his fist down, on the water in frustration so basically. Pretty sure, if I'm reading this correctly, he was trying to stop that tentacle thing from going out into the world. So he was chasing it, goes into water, swims out. He can't swim after it. So he hits the water. He's frustrated. And then he like looks at the helicopter flying by and like roars at them, almost like he's like, "Look what you idiots did." Because there's nothing he can do about it. And that's the end of the first episode. So yeah, Verdugo, sorry, you are no longer in the show unless there's gonna be like flashbacks or something. So it's good, it's intense. If this critter's out there now, it's gonna attack some city. So we'll do more of this. All right, now the movie feature is The Bride! Exclamation point. The Bride. Yeah, this is a tough one for me. I haven't like really sat down and think of it. I didn't love the movie. I'm straight up gonna say that. I wanted to like this more than I did. So this is directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal, and it's got a great cast. So she directed it, she wrote it. and it has Christian Bale, Jessie Buckley, she was great. Christian Bale's great. Peter Skarsgård, Annette Bening, Penelope Cruz, Jake Gyllenhaal. So there's a lot of people in here, and it takes place in I don't know if it's like the 1930s, I believe, and it's essentially The Bride of Frankenstein. So you're familiar with the story. And it's so, we've got Frankenstein's monster or whatever. We got the Bride of Frankenstein, but like in the 1930s, there's a lot of interesting decisions that were made here, and that's one of the things that makes this like really stand out. So it's like there's times that it's like, wow, like wait, what's going on here? The problem is, there are also times where the kind of like the vibe, I don't know, the direction of, I don't really want to say the direction, because I mean, I don't know, am I putting this blame that I didn't like this, whatever, on Meg? I mean, maybe she wrote it and directed it, so I guess it's her movie. These decisions were her decisions. But there's times where I feel like, it's like, okay, what kind of movie is this? I feel like, it's like, wait, is this action? Is this a romance? Is this a comedy? There's a couple points that were a little funny or whatever, and then there's like a dance scene, and I'm like, wait, what's happening here? And it's just like, wait, what's going on? And it's just kind of, and then there's this one other part which I'll talk about in a little bit that I really did not like, but again, it's a decision, and I feel like that part, maybe I'm missing something with that. So we'll get to that in a bit. But so the performances are great. They're really out there. I saw on Rotten Tomatoes someone said, I don't remember if it was a user review or if it was a critic. It might have been a user review. Kind of said, oh, it seems like Frankenstein and the Bride are like Sid and Nancy. And so it's kind of like that, because they're really like kind of out there. And so even though this is like Frankenstein, the Bride of Frankenstein, it is not like it's not like the lumbering Frankenstein. Although there are some parts where he sounds just like that, and it's intentional. So they got a little, they got more energy. There's a lot more going on. They're a little more hip. It's 1930s, but they're still like really out there. So again, these are great choices. Just mix it up instead of just doing, here's another take on whatever, these classic monsters or classic stories or whatever you want to call it. But it just, for me, it was like, so going back to that for a sec, those little weird, I don't even know if I'd say they're weird, but I think they're kind of weird. But those little changes, little doing it this way, doing this scene, and mixing things up like that. That's kind of what I found. I was like, oh, I kind of like that, because I like when movies are a little offbeat, or a little I guess weird, if you just want to break it down to that, where it's not like necessarily your traditional straightforward story. Like, let's shake things up, let's mix things up, let's take a different approach instead of just doing the same old. So there are definitely some different some risks taken. But at the same time, it just felt like, wait, where are we going now? So, and the big test, I think the big struggle that I'm having, where I don't know if you can tell, but I'm as I mentioned several times, I love getting steelbooks. I love the physical media. I want to own the 4K Ultra HD version of this movie, so I can watch it whenever I want, and I can watch it in true HD, not compressed over some streaming service or whatever. And surprisingly, because usually the bigger movies, bigger studios, whatever, the pre-orders for these steelbooks will go out the Thursday before the movie opens, and I usually watch the movies on Thursday nights. This steelbook went live like Thursday afternoon. So like it was before I even went to it. A lot of times it's like It's closer to like evening or whatever. But the Steelbook was out, and I was like, it's kind of a nice Steelbook. I think I like it, but I don't think I don't. And see, I'm still tempted. I was like, well, maybe I should pre-order it still, but I don't think I like the movie enough to want to own it. Like I don't know if I really have a desire to watch it again anytime soon. And there's always things like, well, maybe I missed something. Maybe I need to see it a second time. But you shouldn't need to see a movie a second time to really like it. And while I am not necessarily made of money, I shouldn't be buying like I don't buy like every movie that comes out. I'm very selective. I'm going to buy something that I really enjoy. Although I did pre-order Scream 7. I don't remember if I mentioned that last week that I was tempted. But with The Bride, yeah, it's just I don't know. So before I get into specifics, which not really spoilery, but let's discuss some things. Some what a detail about this. So the movie, the budget is between 80 and 90 million, which is kind of a lot. So, and the only reason I say it's kind of a lot, that means the movie needs to make that up. Now, I don't even know. See, do we have a projection? It's opening alongside Hoppers, which two completely different movies. It's projected it's still early in the weekend as I record this. It's projected to gross 16 to 18 million. And I think it made like 1 million on the preview nights on Thursdays. So it's only maybe 18 million out of a 80 to 90 million dollar. That's not good. So Rotten Tomatoes score, let me find that. Where'd that go? The Rotten Tomatoes score, as of now, this is going to change, but the critic score is a 60%, which is not super great, but it's not horrible. The popcorn metered audience is 65%, which again, not great, not horrible. Let's see. On Wikipedia, it says they sum things up. The website's consensus reads, concocted with all the restraint of a mad scientist experiment. The Bride lurches in so many different creative directions. Yeah, okay, that's exactly what I'm saying. Lurches in so many different creative directions that the overall effect is both sloppy and inspired. I don't know what they mean by that. Unless it's just, again, I kind of like that. I kind of like the idea of it just being like, whoa, wait, where are we going now? So like when we got this sort of like dance number or whatever, it's weird. And I'm like, okay, this is weird. I wasn't expecting this, but yeah, so I don't know if it's intentional. Maggie Gyllenhaal, I think she's directed I don't think she's directed a feature film. I think she did or maybe she did like a short film or something, and then like a TV episode. According to IMDb, she didn't direct a lot. But I'm sure as you're going into this, especially $90 million project. Okay, there's a lot of money riding on this, so you got to think things through. So I'm sure it's very intentional, like what she was doing, and this is her vision. She wanted to do it like this, and all of a sudden go over here, and all of a sudden do that. So again, I respect that, and I kind of dig that. But it just, I don't know, something about it was just a little off for me. So I don't know. It's just weird because, like I said, I kind of wanted to like it more, but it's like I can't force myself to like it. The thing, and this might be the one thing that really bothered me, and I'm a little confused with all this. So part of it is like, what am I missing something? It's like, what's happening here? It starts off, I think it was like right at the beginning, like opening scene, where we have like Mary Shelley like narrating, and she's like in black and white, and she's talking about when I think she said she wrote Frankenstein on a dare, and I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, maybe it is. I'm assuming. I don't think they would just make that up. But she's talking about that. But then somehow she's like in this, something happened to her, and again, I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, but I don't understand what's going on. So the fact that we have Mary Shelley there, she's like in this limbo state, and I don't think she really knows where she's at or how long she's, she knows she's been there for centuries, or not centuries, but decades. And she wants to escape back into the real world or something like that. So then she goes into this woman who becomes the bride. And then I like, how? Where's this coming from? And every once in a while, the Mary Shelley black and white image, it just like cuts in and like yells, and it's like, and that, I think that is the biggest thing that I did not like, because that totally messes up the flow of the movie. More so, I mean, you're gonna change like the energy or the vibe or direct, whatever you want to call it. That's fine. It might be a little weird or a little jarring, but then her, I don't know. I totally feel like I missed the point why she was there, and that was, again, that is a decision that was made, and I don't like that decision. I don't know. I don't feel like we needed that part in the movie, because you could have just told the story. Because you see in the trailer or whatever, this woman gets killed, and then Frankenstein finds her, brings her to this other doctor, Annette Bening. They bring her back to life. Okay, that's all you need. And there's just, yeah. So it's definitely an interesting movie. I'm glad I saw it. I'm glad I saw it in the theater. I'm glad I saw it like with laser projection and the sound and all that stuff. But yeah, I didn't love it, and it's, I mean, I'm totally not invested in it, but I'm kind of upset. I'm kind of bummed that I didn't like it more than that. Even though I'll admit, like before, like a week or two ago, I knew very little. I didn't even realize Christian Bale was in this. Somehow I missed everything. And he knew there was, all right, this is annoying. I was almost done. I was in the outro, and it was a stupid long outro too. And then I look at disc full. I did a rookie mistake where I have so many files on this SD card, like from conventions and interviews and stuff like that. I think I have them all on a external, but for some reason I have like 70 files, whatever, on here. And when I do the podcast every week, I record, and I delete those every week. I delete them, but when you delete them, you got to empty the trash. And I didn't empty, so thank goodness. Yeah, it's like right at the end. All right, so what I was saying, I think I was pretty much done with The Bride. So I didn't know anything about it. I didn't hear anything about it. I don't remember what I just said, but I didn't even know Christian Bale was in it. I saw the trailer. I watched the trailer for the first time. Like, I think it might have been like the week, like right when I bought my tickets. I was like, what am I going to see this week? I was like, what's The Bride? And then I was like, oh, Maggie Gyllenhaal. So I don't know how we didn't know anything about it. But yeah, I wish I liked it more. That's all I'll say. And I don't remember now what I've said and what I haven't said or what's recorded. I do feel it should be seen if you're interested in the actors or the genre or anything like that. It's an interesting movie. It's just, it might not be for everyone. So take that. And yeah, I don't know if I also said that maybe a small part also is it's the 1930s, so it's a little old-timey, but that wasn't that big of a deal. So that is A Bride. It was interesting. And hopefully you thought this podcast was interesting, but that is going to be it for this week. So big thanks to Andrew Loken. He is a big supporter of the show. You can be a supporter by going to patreon.com/gmanfromheck. Any amount you can commit to will be awesome. If you commit at the Rick Jones tier or higher, you get access to the secret podcast from Heck, which is an additional 30-ish minutes of podcast entertainment every single week. I'm back to doing the classic Silver Age DC Comics weird Batman, Superman, whatever comics. I think I did a Batman one last week, and so we'll probably do another one of those this week. I also recently did an Off My Mind about, guess what, Back to the Future, which is about a little like moral question with that. But if you can't commit to a monthly commitment, you can also help out by going to coffee.com/gmanfromheck, and you can buy me a virtual cup of coffee or four. That's ko-fi.com/gmanfromheck. All right, so what are we going to have next week? As far as TV shows, we're going to have the finale of Hijack. I don't remember. Is there 2 more episodes of Wonder Man? I don't remember. I think there's 8 episodes. I don't think it would be 7. And we'll have more Monarch, Legacy of Monsters. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I think we might be done with 56 days, which kind of bums me out because I am curious with that. But it's a lot to cover. And I feel like people may not be interested in that. I don't know. I could be wrong, but as someone pointed out, maybe I should just stick to genre or show, and I don't think that really fits. I don't know. I am curious. I wanted to watch the end, and I just hope I'll have time now because I kind of don't really watch things for fun that often. I'm usually watching stuff that I watch for the podcast. That's why I haven't finished Wednesday season 2 because I'm not covering it anymore since I couldn't, and so I haven't gotten around to watching it. But we'll see. As far as the movie goes, I was like, what's coming out next week? What is there going to be? And I saw there's this movie called Reminders of Him because it didn't look like anything was coming out. I was like, Reminders of Him. After a perfect outing with her boyfriend, Kenna, Micah Monroe, who was in Long Legs and Hand to Rock's Cradle, makes an unbearable mistake that sends her to prison. I'm sure it's going to be a good movie. I mean, Micah Monroe is really good. But that poster, something about the poster, it reminds me of like some of the Netflix shows. What was it? One of my students is reading this book that was I don't know if it was a Netflix movie or, I can't think of it. The Summer I Turned Pretty, or I don't even know. I was like, should I see that? I was like, what else is coming out? But then I was like, oh wait, Undertone is coming out. So Undertone, I think I saw a trailer once. It's an A24 movie. I'm assuming it's like a low budget, and it's the host of a popular paranormal podcast becomes haunted by terrifying recordings mysteriously sent her way. All right, that sounds cool to me. Not because it's a podcast person, whatever, but I like the creepy movies and I like the low budget movies, and I hope that this is good. It's only an hour and a half. It's an hour and 34 minutes, but boom, boom, boom. Go and tell your story. Okay, so I'm pretty sure that's going to be it. I'm bummed. The following week we have Project Hail Mary and Ready or Not. Here I Come. Ready or Not 2, whatever. I wish they weren't opening up the same week. I listened to the audiobook for Project Hail Mary. It's Ryan Gosling. That's going to be really cool. But I loved Ready or Not, and I love Samara Weaving. So I think of the two, I hate to say it, but I think the bigger movie is going to be Project Hail Mary. So I'll probably, move, do that one the first week, because I don't think there's anything big coming out the following week. So we'll see about that. But that's it. So I hope you are doing well. So since we're beginning of March, I just will remind you, don't forget to do your taxes. Thankfully, I got my taxes done. I don't know if I mentioned that last week or not. I hope you're taking care of yourself. I hope you're finding time to do fun things. And I hope you remember, be good to each other.